Yo, what's going on, everybody? We are back, and we're talking UFC St. Louis. It's bets and banter going down, and of course, we can't do it alone. We got to talk about Derrick Lewis. We got to talk about Rodrigo Nascimento. We got to talk about this entire fight card from the bottom all the way on up to the top, but you know we can't do it alone. So without further ado, let's bring in the man himself. Just win, baby. How are you, my brother?
What's up, bro? We made it later than usual, but shit happens. Sorry for the Tom Selleck shirt. I'm not going to Barbados. It's hot as fuck over here. It's nice and light. So, yeah, different attire this week, man. But, yeah, ready to go, man.
Absolutely. Also, just wanted to say off the rip, I know that we lost a member of the MMA betting community. Really sad stuff, guys. Bleed, I don't know him personally, but it is something that I saw. I have seen his work in the past, his content that he did on the platform. I've been a fan of betting information before I was a bettor myself. And so I just wanted to shout out Bleed. I know that you had something to do with the GoFundMe. If you don't mind, just run the people through what that's all about and maybe where they could find that.
Yeah, so there is currently a GoFundMe up. It's doing well, on way to reaching the target. So if people want to donate to that, there is a link on my Twitter. You know, I pinned it to my profile. And anyone who wants to drop a donation of $5 or more, if you do that, screenshot it, DM it me, and I'll give you my picks for this card for free if you want them. So, yeah, the community is really pulled together, man. A lot of people have donated, so appreciate that. And let's keep it rolling.
Absolutely. And I don't think it's in there now, but as soon as we get off the air, I'll go back and add the GoFundMe to our description down in the bio. So if anybody's looking to support, we're just going to try and make it as easy as possible for people. So thank you guys for your support along the way. Small community. Let's try and help people out when we can. You know, leaves behind a daughter and a wife. So that's what we're trying to you know, just see something good happen in the community during a tough time. So next up, guys, we'll move to the card, right? And so if you guys are new here, welcome aboard. My name's Liam. I pick fights on this channel each and every week. We're here with Rich on Thursdays. We normally come at you guys at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Your boy overslept just a couple minutes. And so we're coming at you live 420 to thrive. And we're going to talk from the beginning of the card all the way on up to the top. So without further ado, we'll start with the first fight of the night in the women's flyweight division. We've got JJ Aldrich taking on Veronica Hardy. And Veronica Macedo, Rich, was a very average fighter. When she came to the UFC, I thought she had some heart, some tenacity. You know, she knew a little bit about the stand-up, but her ground game was critically lacking. That was like the big problem. And she came in, she was getting taken down a little bit. She was getting into some awkward transitions. And she just physically did not look like she was up to snuff with a lot of these athletes at the top of the division. But I think what we've seen is since she got the last name Hardy, since she's been working with Dan, since she's been, you know, getting access to better training and better resources, I think she's looked like a completely different fighter. You know, 2 fights most recently in this recent run, right? She had, I think, a 2-year hiatus, maybe a 3-year hiatus. She comes back and she's looked sensational since. Has she looked like the best fighter in the division? Maybe not that. But you could see the clear improvement from where she was to where she's at right now. And I do think that when we're looking at Veronica Hardy, she's putting in a ton of work. Physically, she looks like a completely different person than she was when she arrived, right? She used to have a little bit of body fat, a little bit more, you know, of a belly, just like soft tissue. I don't mean this in a insulting way. I just mean it as an observer, right? Now she looks jacked, like she's out there lifting weights heavy, and she's out there, you know, putting herself in a position where her body has gone through a complete transformation. So the skill looks different to me. She looks much better. The body looks better to me. She looks like she's in much better physical condition. She has the right nutrition. And on top of that all, who's going to have the better game plan here? I think JJ Aldrich has been a historically kind of a fighter that's less than their skills, right? She has the skills to compete with people. She goes out there and wins the first round against a lot of tough women. And then round 2, she breaks and gives up and falls victim to pressure. We saw that against Macy Barber. We saw that against Erin Blanchfield. We saw that against Tatiana Suarez. She can go out there and compete for 5 minutes if you're a really tough chick. But then she starts to get down on herself. She starts to lose confidence. And she, frankly, gives up sometimes. And I think that when you're looking at a fight like this, Veronica Hardy, less likely to give up. I think she's more likely to try and pressure. JJ Aldrich can mix in her wrestling. She can try and take her down, try and make it a difficult fight. But for me, unless Veronica Hardy makes some critical mistakes throughout this fight, she should be the one who's in a position to win it. So give me Veronica Hardy. She's favored to win. She's been a dog her last 2 fights. That's also a little bit telling to me. So give me Veronica Hardy to get the win here. Not saying I'm going to chase the chalk price, but Yeah, I think that at minus 125, minus 130, it did catch my attention because I think she should probably win this around 60% of the time. How about you, Rich?
Yeah, good breakdown, man. The only thing I don't like are these percentages. I had to go at John Starr the other day for throwing them around. It does my nut in, man. But yeah, good breakdown. I'm pretty much with you, man. The same. I liked the Renzo Gracie, activity on Instagram. Dan Hardy, whatever you want to say about him, he's a bit soft, but he's a tactician, man. He breaks down fights well. I think he's a good man to have in your corner. I definitely think you can cite him to be a main factor in, this rejuvenation in her career. That's a good way to put it because, she used to be a bit of a head case in there, mentally weak. And since she's, come back from her time off and, been married to Dan, she's been killing it in there, man. And, her fight IQ is good. And I like your angle, man. I like the sub myself. I like the ITD. It's a little bit of both. It's what Hardy is doing, what she's bringing to the table, but it's also the fact she's fighting JJ Aldrich. I think they bring in Aldrich when they want a gatekeeper. They want to test somebody and see where they're at, like Na Liang. Even the Na Liang fight was a bit of a sweat, man. I think the whole community had Aldrich by finishing that one, but Liang got her into some compromising positions. She had Mount, wasn't able to find a sub. We know now that Liang is just absolute trash. I think she went 0-4 in the UFC, so she was never much of anything. But yeah, it's the fight IQ from Aldrich as well, man. When she fights grapplers, even Erin Blanchfield, she even tried taking her down. Vanessa, she's got a nice armbar from bottom, but JJ just shows a lack of IQ and a lack of respect. And I think at some point she's going to get found out. And, I remember the Polly fight with Veronica. I had Polly by sub in that fight, if I remember correctly. And she was the one who ended up getting armbarred. So I don't think people are up on it, man. But Veronica's got some sneaky jiu-jitsu. She can pull up an armbar. She definitely can finish this fight. I told my Discord about this and they all told me to piss off, basically. Women's MMA goes the distance and all that shit and nobody wants to know. But I'm high on it, man. I think you've got to you've got to look where the value is. And I think I saw plus 550 ITD on Hardy. I think that's amazing value for what it is, the opponent, Aldrich. So yeah, that's enough breaking down this one fight. I think it's pretty clear we're both on Hardy and we like the sub angle.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say, Rich, is just I thought that Jamie Lynn Horth was where the rubber was going to meet the road, right? I was like, yeah, Veronica Hardy, nice little story, come back, get the win as a dog. I was like, but Jamie Lynn Horth is a big girl. She's very strong. I seen her come back from like serious adversity on, I think it was LFA. She had gotten hurt really badly and then came back to choke the girl out. Like, she's a savage. Jamie Lynn Horth comes to play. She is one of the toughest women I've seen in recent years get signed to the UFC. And the fact that Hardy was able to go out there and compete with her physically told me everything I needed to know, because physically, I think Horth is a machine. Like, she's a very strong woman, cuts a decent amount of weight as well to make it. So, it just seems to me like that was the turning point. And to win that, even via close split decision, I like Veronica Hardy moving forward to continue to compete with all these women in the division, because I think she's got the skills and the physicality has now come along.
Another X factor in this
ahead.
fight is the footwork of Hardy, man. I think that's going to play a big factor in this fight. She's got good footwork, Hardy, always laterally like moving, always bouncing around. At least for the first two rounds, she drops off a little bit in the third, but her physique looks amazing, the best it's ever been per Instagram. And Aldrich, she's always got that belly on her. She never really improves. She's plodding in her footwork, likes to hide behind the jab, and I just don't think she's going to be able to find Hardy, man. Hardy can come in and blitz, and I think she can honestly look like minus 200 out here. So yeah, say no more.
Fair play. So then we've got next up Jared Gooden, the Night Train, taking on Kevin Jose. And this is an interesting matchup because Gooden is a guy that has kind of looked like he didn't belong in the UFC, right? 2-4 overall in the promotion, but he has gotten 2 finishes in that time, right? So the UFC likes him because he goes out there and he's willing to put it on the line, right? He's gone to decision with Carlston Harris. He's gone to decision with Alan Juban and a couple of these guys. So they gave him tough opponents. Sometimes he got outclassed and he got his ass beat, but he hasn't been easy pickings for people to just put away at the UFC level. He got knocked out by Impa Kasanganay actually on the regional scene, but Impa is basically on the best run of his career outside the UFC. So, you chalk that up a little bit as unfortunate. Jerry Gooden overall, he's a powerful guy. He throws to multiple levels of the body. Last time out, he became the first man to submit Wellington Turman after he was already knocked out, but still did submit him in that spot, showed a little bit of versatility. I think that we're seeing a Jerry Gooden who is finally feeling free to fight inside the octagon. He knows he's got nothing left to lose. So he's going to go out there and throw. He's going to try and win the fight. I think Jusei is probably a little bit more confident, just like overall. He hasn't lost many fights, especially recently. He's been on a decent run, but I haven't been impressed by the level of competition he's beating. I thought that, let me go back to his record. The Jusei fight where he first came to the UFC against Kiefer Crosby, it was a really back and forth fight until Kiefer Crosby suffered cardiac arrest in the first 25 seconds. And again, that was a fight where they were both just standing and trading kind of wild shots. If that's the fight that you're going to have, especially in the early going, it just seems to me like a guy like Gooden's going to compete because he hits like a truck. So not a very strong take, Rich, but I do think Gooden is live for the knockout here. I'm not as impressed with Kevin Jusei as some other people that I've heard this week. So how do you feel about it, Rich?
Yeah, I do have a strong take, man. Answer this question. What does Kevin Jusei have in common with the Indian sensation Jubilee and Jack Jenkins, the Aussie? Fugazis, the fakes, bro. And this is the get found out time. So I am on Gooden. I think he fucks him up. I think that he should be the favorite in this fight. I don't understand the price tag or the love on Jusei, really, given the competition. Prior to the UFC, he was fighting bums in Hex in Australia. Like you said, the Irish guy that he fought in his debut in Australia, which was, again, is favorable to him. He gassed out a little bit, but he also mentally checked out when he didn't get his knockout within the first 3 minutes. It was a bit to do with the skill set from Jusei. He does have a decent jab. He does have that calf kick. His physique, he's probably on the juice. It looks like it, certainly. And then in his second fight against Song, Song's old, man. He's like 33. And what I dislike most about Song is he'll take the fight that you give him. So Jusei kept him at arm's length, hid behind the jab, and he was content to do that for 3 rounds. And Song was content to let him do that for 3 rounds. Jab, jab, calf kick, rinse, repeat, got him the decision. No emphasis on pushing the fight, pushing takedowns, getting a finish, getting 50K. So yeah, he's got a real tough competition here. Like I said, the first fight was in Australia. The second fight he had was in the Apex. Now they're sending him to St. Louis to fight Gooden. You mentioned it at the beginning, man. Gooden came into the UFC, 26 years old. He was a bit fresh-faced then. He's paid his dues now. He's had his stint in the UFC, went back to the regionals again, got some wins under his belt. Now 30 years old, man, and I think he's in his prime. And I like his game, man. I like his attitude. I think when he's got a full camp, he's a dangerous man. Power in his hands, legit BJJ. I think if they were to roll on the mat within a round, Gooden will be subbing Jusei if that was the case. And most importantly, to get past that distance, I don't think Gooden is going to be content to sit on the outside. I think he's got a nice blitz where he will use his footwork to, narrow the distance and land something on Jusei significant. Mix in the takedowns, cage pushing, make it a dirty fight. He basically won't give Jusei, in my opinion, the fight that he wants. And that's the big thing for me. And that's why I bet him at the nice price tag he was. I even seen him at plus 200 at one point. I think I got 187. So I'm happy with that, man. Even the ITD I've seen floating around plus 300 for Gooden. That's super generous, man.
Yeah, if we learned anything about his last fight, it's that always take the ITD because this fucking bastard will sell you down the river on the KO, dude. Unbelievable. I did have the ends by KO in the Wellington Turman and Jerry Gooden fight, and they both beat the absolute tar out of each other, and then he submitted his corpse. Very unfortunate outcome for me. I think it was like plus 300 or something on the ends by knockout. And the reason people had steamed the ends by sub was because of Wellington Turman, not Jared Gooden. So very frustrating outcome. But in any case, man, the other things to mention here, you got a younger guy in Jared Gooden with more UFC experience, professional experience. He's been around a long time. He's got a longer reach. Like, he just checks a lot of boxes for an underdog who could be live this weekend. And then on top of that, volatile weight class, right? We're not talking about, 125 pounders where they're going to have 25 minutes to figure it out and maybe 100 exchanges. It's like one exchange goes wrong, could be a problem for you. The last thing I'll mention, the danger factor, if you want to say, hey, how could Jett win this fight? Abubakar Nurmagomedov is not known for being like the greatest boxer in the world. And he basically jabbed the face off of Derrick Gooden for like 15 minutes by just circling, jab. I think that Jett could put together a similar game plan. That's kind of his upside here. But I think that in more often than not, he's going to get into some competitive exchanges because Nurmagomedov was committed to jab and nothing behind it and move. That's it. He just stuck to the jab. And I think that for Jett, he's probably going to get a little bit more aggressive. Right? He's a young man, take some risk, probably throw the backhand a little bit as well. And I think he's going to put himself in range to be clipped, and Gooden hits like a truck. So, yeah.
Was that short notice? Was that short notice, the Russian, the jab?
I think he did fill in on short notice for that one, but I can't remember. He might have even missed weight for that one, if my memory serves.
He did, yeah.
Jared, he missed weight for – actually, no, he missed weight for Randy Brown and Carlston Harris, but – seems like he made weight for the Abubakar fight. I'm not sure if it was on short notice, though. I'll look into that.
Yeah, and another thing, just to close on this one, I recommend people go watch Jett against Jack Dallamana, whatever, on the regionals. And I know it's Jack, and Jack's a problem, and he's a decent fighter and whatnot, but he quit in that fight, Jett, for me. And I always say, man, if someone's quit once before, they will quit again when it's put on them, man. If he can have a pretty fight, like I said, at range, and people are willing to give him that, he's okay. But if you put it on him, man, he's willing to break in there and cash the ITD bet for you. So that's something to note.
Anthony's looking to fade City Kickboxing with the Gooden sub prop. So, hey, best of luck to everybody, however you want to get down. The other thing I want to say, just to address this, get this shit out of the chat. A couple of people are asking about you, an MMA line mover, Jewish bettor. I just want to say this for myself, right? A couple of people had asked in the comment section on YouTube as well. I'm a big fan of both these guys. I've had both these guys on my show, right? I've platformed both these guys because I believe in their work. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody's going to be friends, right? I'm not we're grown men, okay? I can't tell everybody, hey, you're going to like this person, you're going to like this person, and that's the way it is. That's just not how it rolls, right? So if people don't like each other, that's fine. That's between them. They're grown men. I expect that they can deal with that as grown men. And for me personally, I like the Jewish bettor. We speak on the phone. He's a friend of mine. But that doesn't mean that me and Rich are not doing our show or whatever. It's like, if Rich doesn't like him, that's fine. That's between them. They have their conversations. But he knows exactly where I stand with him, right? I talk to him. I say, hey, bro, just so you know, I don't feel that way. You're my boy. So if you need something, you call me. So that's the kind of guy I am. That's the kind of relationships I have. We don't all have to get along, but I'm going to be me. I'm not going to fucking change who I am. I'm not going to change who my friends are. It's all just the way it is. So appreciate everybody for the concern. But as my guy, MMA Line Mover says, you my guy, you're my fucking guy too. And Rich is my guy as well. So fuck it. Appreciate you guys being here. Rich, if you have anything you want to add, you can. But that's all I just wanted to get out of the way. It's like, we're all here to fucking make money, no? Like, if you guys don't think that he can help you make money, fucking look this way. If you think me and Rich can help you make money, subscribe to the fucking show. Drop a like on the feed. It's like that. That's the way it is. Please go ahead, Rich.
Yeah, I echo them sentiments, man. I can't see the chat today. My internet's been playing up, so I can't have both the stream and the chat. Otherwise, my internet will just fizzle out. So I can't actually see the chat. But what I will say is I don't really have a problem. I don't hate anybody at all. This mush horseman thing I'm doing, it is a bit of a laugh, man. It's not too deep. Obviously, I do try and poke and provoke a little bit on Twitter. Do I think he's a good bettor? No. Do I think he's a bad person? No. It's as simple as that. It's not that deep, man. And as Liam says, I do feel sorry for him a bit. I put him in compromising positions sometimes. Maybe we should have a disclaimer up. Liam does not endorse anything Rich says. But yeah, it is what it is, man. It's not that deep.
That is the way it is, man. It's like for everybody who's out there wondering, that's the answer. It's like, we don't all have to get along, but we're going to try and make us some fucking money one way or the other. And I hope that you guys make some money too. Tail fader indifferent. Keep on rocking with us. So next up, man, we got Jake Hadley taking on Charles Energy Johnson. And I got to say, Rich, this is one that I'm excited to talk about. Jake Hadley, I believe that one of the people that I train with, her husband is like the lawyer for Jake Hadley and like,
Right.
you know, his management group and stuff. So some interesting stuff. I'm going to try and go to jiu-jitsu, get my little interesting nuggets of information. But in any case, Hadley is a guy that looks like he's showing up in good shape and you know, he's motivated, wants to be here, but big spot against Charles Johnson, local hometown guy with a lot of UFC experience, ton of professional experience as well. How do you see this one going down, Rich?
Well, I'm super biased, man, because Jake Hadley comes from like a town maybe 20 minutes away from me, Wolves, and they're not nice people, man. You know, they're a bit like scummy, and I think that's Jake Hadley. So I'm always a bit biased whenever he fights. You know, that accent, whenever I hear it, it just reminds me of him. You know, I've spent time there. So, yeah, I'm a bit biased. I haven't really got much on this one, to be honest. You know, on the Hadley side, the top thing I've put is, why haven't they put him on that Manchester card, the one that's coming up? You know, it looks like he's obviously going to miss out with that by being on here. So I think that's interesting. You know, they're putting him against a hometown guy as well, Johnson. So it seems like in terms of the way they've matchmade this, it's favorable for Johnson purely based on that. But in terms of the fight, you know, I've seen this this picture of him floating around cutting weight. It looks like the guy needs a drink fast. I think the weight cuts have previously been a problem for him. You know, he slows down in fights if he doesn't get his submission early. He's willing to flop to his back, you know, put the triangles up. And one thing I've always, you know, took into consideration when I cap Johnson is he doesn't get KO'd and he doesn't get subbed, you know. And I don't want someone going back to the regionals back in 2015 and saying, no, he got KO'd. I'm just saying notoriously, you know, ordinarily, he doesn't get subbed and he doesn't get finished. You know, he minds his P's and Q's when it comes to the sub defense. He has good cardio. The most frustrating thing about Johnson is when it's time to put it on and put the, you know, the pedal to the floor, man, and put the gas on and fucking, you know, use that elite cardio he has to break them. He kind of doesn't do it, and he's been super frustrating. But in this one, I think he's the side, man, purely based on the weight cut from Hadley. We know he's going to slow down. When I'm capping him, I primarily look for him to win by sub because that's usually his path to victory, unless he's fighting Malcolm Gordon and he can find a TKO, but, you know, big whoop there. So I think Johnson's the side. I think KO.
I would have been more impressed if he submitted Malcolm Gordon. You know, that I've said that before, but Malcolm's a real grappler. He just doesn't have a great chin.
Truth. Yeah, even Johnson TKO could hit on this one. You know, we could. There's a world where in 2 and 3, if he shows some IQ, doesn't follow him to the ground, just tells the ref, you know, stand him back up, rinse and repeat, stand him back up. And then it might get to the point where he doesn't get back up. You know, his cardio just fails him, maybe round 3, and Johnson wins by TKO. You know, if you get Goodard in there, he's a fucker, man. He'll give you one warning, get up, fighter. And if you don't get up within 2 seconds, fight's over and, you know, you've missed out. So, yeah, I think Johnson's the side, man, based on that.
You know, Rich, we're going to do a lot of agreeing on this show today. And I'm not a huge Charles Johnson guy. You go back and listen to this show. Like I've always said, I'm like, why do people like insist on like losing money betting on this guy? I was kind of blown away by it. Not because I think he's bad, just because I was like, he finds ways to lose fights, like close fights. You know, Ode Osborne, no way that Charles Johnson should lose that fight in a million years. Just no way. But we've seen that Charles is a guy that kind of struggles with his offense. Defensively, he's very sound. It's very hard to get off clean shots on him. It's not an easy guy to beat up. And then on the ground, it's like, okay, you could take him down. You could put him in a bad spot, maybe. But it's like from there, we saw Makayev. It was a great example of like, yeah, you could get him to a rear waist cinch. That's about as far as you get with a guy like Charles Johnson. He's stingy. But what I would say is sometimes he gets forced into these reactive game plans, right? I start wrestling you. He starts wrestling. Like, all right, we're wrestling now. And he's turning away and he's fighting the hands. He's built for 5 rounds, you know, because the guy does not slow down very much. He does typically go out there, push a hellacious pace, make these guys compete at a pace rate they're not comfortable with. So if he had longer to work, he would get more finishes. And we actually saw this against Carlos Mota, who's a pretty hyped guy on the regional scene, you know, and what happened with Mota when he fought him, he was having some success. As the fight got extended, as it wore on, Charles just keeps going. He keeps pushing. He keeps pressing. Keeps getting in your face. And like you said, Rich, if somebody's really hard to put away, the longer the fight goes, the more difficult it is to beat them because they're going to be there all night. So it's like, I need to now make sure I don't get tired at a rate that is faster than he does. Otherwise, I'm stuck out here with this guy who I can't finish, who's going to be putting it on me. So I do think that eventually one day Charles Johnson will get cracked on the chin. Like that's always a possibility. It's a fight. but I don't think Jake Hadley's that guy. I don't think he's the one to do it. So I think that both of these guys are probably going to be around evenly matched in the grappling. I think Hadley is effective with his grappling offense. He can, snatch up submissions. I thought he looked great against Cody Durden, but we saw if you're tough, if you're gritty, you can survive those positions, right? I always say, why do I talk about chokes, guys? Because if you go for a choke and you get somebody in it, they just go to sleep, right? But if you go for an armbar, somebody can be like Cody Durden and be like, I'm tough as fuck. I'll just let this turn inside out and then get, back on top and win the fight. So for me, that's the thing is like, I don't believe in Jake Hadley's jiu-jitsu enough to just say he's going to be the first guy to submit Charles Johnson. And if he's not, he's going to this guy's hometown to, trade blows with a guy that's going to be getting the crowd reaction, that's going to throw more volume. And I think that also could be more effective down the stretch. So for me, it's a dog or pass situation. I'm leaning towards the Charles Johnson side.
As you're saying that, yeah, some other things to mention. Hadley isn't a good wrestler either, man, to get people to the mat. Like you said, Durden put himself in those positions, but obviously was confident, that he had the defense. I don't think Johnson's going to be looking to take him down. It's going to be defending takedowns and then, hitting the boxing. And I think he's a better boxer than Hadley too. So yeah, there's some things, man. And another thing on Durden, man, because I only watched the fight the other day. That was so cringe near the end of the fight. No matter what the bad blood was, doing that bloody WWE suck it thing and just acting a fool. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that because I didn't like it from Durden. I think he's a bit of a nerd, man.
The thing I wanted to mention here, and I will say he was very kind to me when I was on Half the Battle with him. So I think that Cody's a nice enough guy. But what I will say is the Azat Maxim win for me, like that was a really impressive win, right? Like 15-0, goes out there, grits one out, tough fight, gets the win, gets the victory. He got like no credit for that, right? Because it's like Jake Hadley has less UFC experience. He has less professional experience. He's less proven than his last opponent. Azat Maxim has more pro fights, was the talk of the town, and now he's not getting any credit or respect for that. That does seem a bit interesting to me. But we can move along to the next fight, my man. We got Trey Waters taking on Billy Goff. I think I started the first two. Why don't we kick this one over to you, Rich? Do you have any thoughts and feelings on this one?
Yeah, I do. I like Torres, man. I don't know whether that's popular opinion or what, because I haven't seen much on Twitter regarding this bout, so I don't know how people feel, and I can't see the chat either, so I'm never going to know. But I like Torres. She's ranked 14th against Rici, who's 11th. So I'd imagine whoever wins this could possibly break into the top 10. The metrics are the same, both 5-1, 6-1 reach. Obviously, the big talk on this fight is Tisha. She's obviously, had a baby, been off for over more than 2 years. And, when we look at people who have previously done that, the likes of Avela, who fought Tate most recently, GDR, she fought, lost. Nina Nunes in her fight, when she come back, she lost. So, the stats aren't on the side, but sometimes I like to go against the grain. I think Tisha is different than those people. Maybe it's because it's a smaller weight class. I don't know. But per Instagram, she's looking as good as ever. She's looking ripped. She's notoriously from the ATT camp, so she might be on some special supplements, who knows, to help her out in that department. Training with Rocky Pennington, obviously the champ of the 135 division, always someone good to have in your corner. As I just referenced, she's from a good camp. And a wealth of experience, man. Before, she went on this little hiatus, she was going to a split decision with Dern. She was in some compromising positions, didn't get subbed. I like that for this fight because Rici, I think if she's going to win a fight, it's going to be by submission, like she did against Penne. But yeah, ordinarily, I don't like Rici and I don't like her game, man. I've watched her for a while now, starting with Maria Oliveira, who I classed as one of the worst fighters to ever grace the UFC. Polly, Penne, who was 40 at the time. Gillian Robertson, who we know is like a pothead weirdo. Sometimes, she comes in and gets a submission. Sometimes she's a flake and, she flakes on herself in there. And I think that's what happened. And then, what's funny? The Loopy fight, man. I bet Rici in the Loopy fight. And I don't know whether I should consider myself lucky or unlucky because, she had some moments in that fight. She dropped Loopy at one point. I just felt like her footwork in the Loopy fight was going to be a problem. And, I think it wasn't a bad bet as an underdog. But anyway, in this fight, I think they fight similar also. They blitz in with combos. They both have decent footwork. They're going to be hard to find each other. But I think if you took away the time off for Tisha and you took away the pregnancy, I'd like to think that people would be backing her here as an underdog more so, and that the big X factor in this fight is that time off. And if you're like me, you don't think that's going to come into play and matter, then you've got to take her as an underdog, man. And that's exactly what I've done. I don't think Rici will be able to take Tisha down. I don't think Tisha's going to be stupid enough to take her down and put herself in stupid positions and get herself subbed. And I don't really believe in the jiu-jitsu of Rici anyway. You know, she couldn't sub Maria Oliveira, which was frustrating. I bet her by subbing that one and learnt my lesson fast. And I'm going to the well with it, man. I slipped up betting her against Lupi. I'm not going back to it. Taking Torres as an underdog. Oh, sorry, it should be Pennington as an underdog.
Very nice. So I have actually bet in the past Tabitha Rici multiple units against Polyana Viana. And that was the only time I've bet on her and won. I bet on her against Menifield. You guys know how that one ended. Not very good. But that was her UFC debut. She was like plus 500 or something. And I was like, you know what? Maybe she could get her to the ground. She got beat up, assaulted on the feet. Okay. We learned our lesson there. But the Polyana Viana fight, I was proud of that one. I thought that was a really easy read in hindsight, where I was like, I don't think she's getting submitted, right? She's got quality jiu-jitsu to not get submitted if it ends up on the ground. And I was like, Polyana Viana, otherwise it's like KO reliant. She's not a minute winner. So I was like, she's going to win this fight by just being boring and like doing whatever she needs to do to win and doing more activity. And that fight is the most boring fight of all time, right? Like she literally takes Polyana Viana down and then kicks her in the leg from standing for 15 minutes. And I'm the only guy at home like, yeah, get her, Tabitha, yeah! And she's just ripping low kicks to a grounded opponent. Boring fight. Terrible, terrible outcome.
Polly was flopping to her back, man.
That's what I'm saying. But this is the thing. Polyana Viana is a one-trick pony. That's all she's got. Is like, I either need to armbar you or I need to knock you out standing. And I've made a lot of money on Polyana Viana doing just those things. However, outside of that, you've seen what she looks like in the UFC. Like you said, guard pulling, flat backing herself, looking disinterested, getting finished. Those are all the things you can expect from Polyana Viana. However, it wasn't against her, right? We talked about Macedo finished her back in the day when she wasn't even good, Polyana Viana, with an armbar, right? Which is supposed to be Tabitha Rici special, and she didn't finish her. I also parlayed her up against Maria Oliveira. You mentioned it. Didn't finish that fight. Tabitha Rici has been a little disappointing for me in terms of her offense, right? I think she's got all the skills. She's not a terrible fighter on the feet, but she's not going to win a majority of fights there. She's small. She's going to be the same size as Pennington here. So that's the thing that kind of evens out. It's like, all right, these two women are the same size. You got 5-year youth advantage favoring Tabitha Rici, but who's the best grappler that we've seen, Tisha Torres, Tisha Pennington go against lately? Mackenzie Dern. And while, if you guys watch that back, Mackenzie Dern had her as good as finished, like with a power Kimura. And this girl's just tough as shit, right? Just stood in there, held Mackenzie Dern up in the air, like holding her own wrist, just refused to tap and refused to give up. So I do think that Tisha Torres, not an easy woman to submit, not an easy mark. Is she going to look good post-pregnancy? I don't know. The difference for me with a girl like Torres Pennington and a girl like Germaine de Randamie, I knew Germaine de Randamie as a title fighter. Like she is just a world-class fighter. The problem was her wrestling is not great. And she looked old in her wrestling in rounds 2 and 3. But if you guys go back to that fight, Norma Dumont landed about 0 effective strikes, right? What happened is she took her down, out-wrestled an older woman, and that was that. She just didn't have the requisite skills to get back up and the requisite explosiveness at 40 years of age post-pregnancy. Tisha's only 35, so she should be a little bit closer to that athletic prime, a little bit of physical dynamism. She does look good. I thought Germaine looked good on the face-offs and everything leading up to the fight. I do think Tisha looks good right now. So I think this should be a highly competitive fight. I don't think it's going to be a blowout by any means. I do think people have rewritten history, right? Rich, if If Germaine de Randamie ends up on top to end that fight, throwing ground and pound, as opposed to ending up back on bottom, getting scrambled, she wins the fight. Because Norma Dumont did fucking 0 in rounds 2 and 3. She just out-wrestled an old woman. So if Germaine had won that fight, I think we're having a whole different conversation. People are like, you know what? The new best base for women's MMA, get pregnant and come back. So I'm half kidding, but like, I do think probably more upside to the dog here. I just don't know if I'm going to get there because I have a weird feeling that Tabitha Rici is somebody that the UFC likes. Somebody mentioned it before in the chat. Shout out, sharpest chat in the game. You look and see that Callum Walsh, he's like the UFC's like investment on Fight Pass, right? This Irish guy, hey, after my own heart, right? Irish boxing guy, but Callum Walsh dating Tabitha Rici, takes her to the fights. They're seen together all these places, and he gets special favors, I believe, from the UFC. So I'm not convinced that Tabitha Rici isn't like looking at the roster like, okay, give me Tisha Pennington off pregnancy and like picking her own fights. So just something to keep in the back of our mind.
Well,
could be me overinterpreting, but I'm just saying I think the UFC likes both these women for different reasons, right? One is connected to the current champ. The other one is connected to the cash cow on Fight Pass. So please go ahead, Rich.
Yeah, well, she fucked up picking Tisha, and Tisha's going to fuck her up. And yeah, I was just going to add that. Well, one goes out with the champ, Rocky. So, you know, it's like when Nina Nunes come back, man. I think she got a couple of wins. Obviously not her first bout, but yeah, you're definitely right. Both get favors for different things. So I think they just negate each other, man. It's all about the matchup.
Oh, yeah. And matchup-wise, I think it's a close fight. So you could do worse than taking the underdog, right? Next up, my man, we got Trey Waters and Billy Goff. We got slightly off order here, but we'll go back to it. No problem. We got Trey Waters here, 8-1 as a professional, and clearly looked good in his last two fights. Shut down Josh Quinlan, took the undefeated record from him, beat Jalen Fuller on the regional scene, and prior to that, he got submitted in a back and forth exchange with Gabriel Bonfim. Looked like he had hurt Bonfim. Looked like he landed some good shots. Then he goes for the guillotine choke. Looked like he might have gotten it, but this is the reason the reason I was hesitant about Trey Waters moving forward is this. If you're going to guillotine, you got to know the fundamentals, right? Like if you're going to guillotine in mixed martial arts, you have to know either I want to finish this fight or end up in a better position than I started in. And this guy goes for a guillotine and not only doesn't end up in a better position than he started, he gets submitted going for his own submission. It's a little bit of a flaw to your game planning, right? He was like looking for the grip, the prayer grip on the guillotine. And what ends up happening is, you know, the guy just passes his guard. So what you need to be doing as a calculus when you're attacking a guillotine is this still viable or do I need to let go? And there's times when it makes sense, even if you can't finish it, to hold on to a guillotine. But it does not make sense to hold on to a guillotine when the guy's already passed your guard. So it's just like he had gotten his guard passed. He did not understand the fundamentals had completely changed. And he got submitted there. That was not a great look for me. I do think Bonfim has a nasty guillotine choke of his own, so he knows the answers, right? If you ask a question that he knows the answer to, going to make it a little bit easier for him. But you're looking at the Billy Goff side. He's a tough motherfucker, right? Like I do think that he's going to be willing to take damage to try and put this fight on the ground, put Trey Waters in some bad positions, and he also swings crazy shots. I think if this fight plays out at distance, Trey Waters should win the fight. Because Trey Waters is a long guy. He's accurate with the jab. He's probably got better footwork than Goff. And I think he takes a strike better on the feet than Goff does. But I just have a weird feeling that Goff is going to put him on his ass, man. And like, I do think Trey Waters, long, tall, that can be effective for striking. But I do think it can make you a little bit more liable on the mat at times. Long limbs, easier to attack. So it's not an easy fight. It's not a fight that I plan on having betting action, but I do think it's going to go under 2.5 rounds. And, yeah, I think it's going to be a very highly competitive fight. I would not be laying the big chalk price on the favorite. How do you feel about this one, Rich?
Yeah, well, we disagree, man, on pretty much everything in this one. I've had my underdogs. Now I'm going for the favorite. But yeah, you're the jiu-jitsu guy, man. I've never done a class in my life. The most I've done is 2 judo lessons when I was like 8. So I'm just going by what I've seen previously in the UFC. And I give him a pass for that Von Flute choke, man. You know, it was Bonfim. You know, he is a fake. You know, we faded him against Dalby, but he's good at jiu-jitsu, man. He knows, he knows the technical side of it. And he wrapped that up fast, man. I don't think Waters had a chance to react to it. I did go and watch that fight doing tape. And, he locked it up quick, man, within like 10 seconds, I want to say. So I give him a little bit of a pass for that. Ordinarily, I do like his jiu-jitsu, man, and I actually think he's going to get his sub in this fight. He has 7 sub wins, and what's funny is all of his losses have come via sub as well, 3 of them, but he has 7 sub wins. I like his chin. He's been cracked a couple of times in some of the tape I watched, and it didn't really seem to phase him. He was back to it. I like his pull counters. I like his range. I like his the length, the metrics he has in this. He has a 5-inch reach advantage. And I just think Billy's, had his moment, man. You know, he's had his glory in the 2 fights, the Dana White Contender Series fight and Kinoshita, where he wasn't supposed to win. You know, he got rocked in that Dana White Contender Series fight and come back. But I just think that can only serve you well for so long, that style. And I think he's in love with it, man. I think he's going to try and do the same again, negate the range, the distance, crash into the pocket. He's either going to get knocked out doing that, or he's going to get club and subbed, or he's going to try for his takedown and get guillotined, man. So I like Waters a fair bit in this one. I think he wins, and I think Billy's probably going to get finished because I don't think he's going to pace himself. And from the wins of the previous bout, I think he's fell in love with his, that he's striking, that high pace, that pressure, that volume, and he's going to try doing it again to his own detriment, man. So I'll take Waters here.
Yeah, I'm kind of stunned by how this is priced. Rich, Goff by sub is 18-1. I do find that a bit surprising because I think that's like his most viable path to a victory in this spot. Yeah. So that maybe should be a little bit telling as well. I'll look into this one a little bit deeper. Again, wasn't my favorite fight to target from a betting standpoint. However, I do think that it's interesting to note. I bet Szymon Smotriski against Billy Goff back in the day on Contender Series. He did rock him and then instantly get finished after that. So if you look, I haven't been high on the Billy Goff side. I think that was like a plus 145, I think, on Szymon Smotriski. So not to say that I'm like a big Billy Goff believer, but the only other bet I've ever placed on a fight between these guys is I bet Quinlan by sub against Waters. I think both these guys are just fraudulent is the bottom line. I think eventually they'll be found out. I don't view them as like top guys, but obviously Waters showed off, a lot of composure in his last fight with Quinlan. Quinlan has been exposed a little bit since coming to the UFC, but I do think that Waters showed a lot more mature product, and a guy that comes into the UFC a little bit green, a little bit fresh, gets finished on Contender Series. I'm not going to hold that against him his whole life. So fair enough.
Yeah, this is definitely a regional fight, man. It's like an LFA fight or something like that. I don't think any of them are longed for the UFC. The other thing I would mention is I don't think Billy's a smart man. That's what leads me to believe that he's going to just, do what he usually does and, not game plan for each opponent. He's just going to, crash into the pocket. He brought a car, bro, a brand new one, and he crashed it within like 2 hours, totaled it. I'd imagine he was doing something stupid, showing off. I imagine the last thing he said was, "Watch this." And then boom.
He said, "Hold my beer." Bing. Oh, it's brutal. But good stuff, my man. We can move along to the next one here. We've got Terrence T-Rex McKinney taking on Esteban Ribovics. And this is a fight that I think a lot of people are going to break down the same way. And I think that they're probably going to be right. Because we've seen a pretty clear dynamic with Terrence McKinney, right? When he comes out hot. He starts the first round. He does very well. Throws big shots. He could take people down. He could submit people, right? Fares Ziam got exposed in the first round by Terrence McKinney taking him down, putting him in some bad positions, being one step behind, transitioned. He got finished, right? I think that in this spot, Ribovics is a tough guy. He's not a guy I expect to give up unless he's dead to rights. So if he gets put in a rear naked choke and he's finished, that I think is the way he loses this fight. He could also get clipped on the chin. He's a human being, right? You get hit on the chin by a guy like Terrence, who's throwing mostly from his hip and like putting full power behind it. Yeah, he can knock you out. Matt Frevola is like a top 15 fringe guy in the UFC, and he got knocked out in 7 seconds by McKinney because that's what McKinney is really good at. He starts hot, can hit you, can knock you down, and he could also finish you on the ground. But we've seen in extended fights, Terrence McKinney really struggles. Sean Woodson put him away in the second round in a fight where Terrence was having a lot of success in round one. Then we've also seen other examples of it where Terrence comes out hot, Drew Dober puts him down, lands a couple shots, looks like he's going to be the guy to take Drew Dober's crimson chin away, and then bang, Drew Dober counters, lands his own shots, puts him down. So we've seen a lot of positive results from Terrence McKinney, but we've kind of seen the limitations, the ceiling on his game. He does tire out in the second round, and I think a few people have pointed out this week, there's a difference between somebody who gasses out physically, right? You look at them, they're a muscle head. So they literally can only move around for 3 minutes before everything fills with lactic acid and they're now stuck like this, right? That's not what happens to Terrence McKinney. He's a guy that gets into his own head and then gives up. And what happens is like, if you're a really confident guy and you're out there like, yeah, I can take out anybody, and it starts to get harder, and now I'm starting to breathe heavy. Now I'm starting to remember the last time I gassed out in the second round, and it all spirals and falls apart. And we've seen that several times. So I think that what's really concerning here is like McKinney could be having a ton of success, but Ribovics just needs the confidence to say, hey, if I can keep pushing this guy, if I don't get given, if I don't give up one terrible position and get finished, I'm going to win this fight. It's just going to be a matter of time. And I do think that Ribovics has given up easy takedowns in the past, but he's given them up to solid enough wrestlers, to guys that are pretty decent grapplers. Kamwela Kirk's a black belt. Loic Radzhabov's a big, strong, muscle-head wrestler. So it just seems to me like guys that are going to take him down, he is a little bit one note with that Kimura defense, right? I think it's an interesting gimmick, an interesting trick, but against Terrence, that's not going to work, I don't believe, unless Terrence is exhausted. I do think in rounds 2 and 3, Terrence McKinney getting Kimura is not out of the realm of possibility, because I do think he could just fall apart. But in round 1, when he's fresh, I don't see that shit working at all. I think that Terrence is probably going to have opportunities to take the back and put him in bad situations. So for me, the thing that stands out, Kamwela Kirk said the guy's really good at hand fighting. The guy is really intentional about keeping the chin tucked, staying disciplined. And in that fight, he outlasted Kamwela Kirk, who's not known for just being a complete flake in rounds 2 and 3. He can fall off a little bit over the course of a fight, but Terrence is like known for can't make it 15 minutes. It's either going to win in the first 2 rounds or be done with it. So that for me makes me think Ribovics, you'd almost have to see it to believe he should be the underdog here, because he's never been finished in the first round. He is a tough guy, and he is a guy that's willing to go out there, take one to give one. So I think in this fight, he's probably going to get the better of it. But Terrence McKinney, A-side underdog, the line is coming in on him a little bit. It's just, for me, the ABCs say always bet on cardio, and he doesn't have it. So how do you feel, Rich?
Yeah, nothing too much to add, man. Some things to note that I noticed were Ribovics, he's had 2 fights in the UFC, and they've both been on pay-per-views. I don't know if that says something about how high the UFC, see this guy. Maybe now that's why he's not on a pay-per-view. They've kind of give up on him. I don't know, but that was something I noticed. The last 2 bouts for McKinney were against complete nobodies. Mike Breeden, shout out for the Jubilee win, but Mike Breeden's the most unathletic guy in the world, man. So it was tailor-made for McKinney. And then he fought a guy called Marat, who I've never heard of. So that doesn't say much to me. Yeah, he impressed me in the Dober fight, man. When I went back and watched it, I had Dober huge by KO, because I thought, it's going to be a typical McKinney fight. He's going to blow his wad in round 1 and get TKO'd, because Dober never subs anybody. And yeah, I was worried, man. Dropped him twice. So, that was a concern when I'm looking at this bout. But ultimately, I'm on the Ribovics side. He's at Kill Cliff. I think he's juiced, man, because every fight I see him, that cardio is just kind of unlimited. Even when he gets grappled, fucked, he stays composed. And I don't think that McKinney will sub in this fight. Maybe, he can meme KO, get a flash KO. He throws the kitchen sink, unorthodox in round 1. But as you said, man, I don't think his jiu-jitsu is all that. I went and watched the Ziam fight. Ziam, that tap, the rear naked choke wasn't even in, man. It was kind of like on the side. I think Ziam just, is a bit of a bitch when it comes to the jiu-jitsu. Obviously, he's a kickboxer. And Ribovics, I just don't think he's going to give it up, man. I think he's just going to lock himself down, not give you anything. Fight starts round 2. McKinney does his usual thing, gets in his own head, like you alluded to. And yeah, he flakes in there, man, and gives up the fight. I can't remember the guy's name. Is it Said Yakubov or whatever? The guy who was in the UFC and got caught.
Saidukub Kakramanov. He's a friend of the show, so you better be careful.
Well, that guy's missing a few brain cells himself, man. I see him put in some suspect things sometimes on Twitter. He's a nice guy, sometimes he puts some funny stuff, but other times, he puts some proper weird stuff. He's like, McKinney season, McKinney's going to get it done. I said, is he going to pace himself or, go full R word, retard? And he didn't respond, man, but I knew the answer anyway. It's kind of rhetorical. McKinney's going to do what McKinney does. So if he doesn't get his KO in round 1, I'm going for Ribovics to fuck him up. I look to live bet it. Unibet, shout out to them. They give you stupid numbers up until round 3 on the live props, if people didn't know about that. So I'll be looking to live bet it, man.
Interesting. So I think that it's a fun fight. It's a banger at lightweight, but it does seem to me like it's got a lot of inherent volatility. McKinney's not a guy I feel like I could trust at these short dog prices, but I did mention on my first look, and I will just bring up again, it is hard when the guy is probably going to win round 1 at a decent clip. to not make him the favorite or closely line the fight because of what you just mentioned, Rich, the opportunity to bet live, right? It's like if I could just take him pre at plus 140, he gets a takedown, and then I can get plus 140 on the other side. It's like now I'm just getting free money from the book. So they try and avoid that by bringing this line down on McKinney a little bit because he is front loaded with his success. Next up, my man, we got Chase the Dream Hooper against Vyacheslav Slavakos Borshev. Fun fight, and I'll go first on this one and just say I like Chase Hooper. You know, as a guy, this weekend in the fight, I think it's a great fight. I think it's good matchmaking, and I think that the guy that Chase Hooper has become at lightweight is a guy that is based on pressure. You know, he's going to come forward. He's going to try and push the pace. He's going to try and be very aggressive, and I think that we've seen, you know, at his best, Chase Hooper can land a ton of strikes, whether that's on the feet or on the ground. I think his striking defense still leaves a lot to be desired. However, he's tough as shit. And I think in the lightweight division, he takes a shot much better than he did at featherweight. Steve Garcia was able to put him down so many times. And if you watch that fight back and then listen to Chase's interview, he basically said, he was like, yo, I'm out here feeling like a shell of myself. Like I can't get my body to react when I'm trying to. And so he's getting hit by clean shots. Steve Garcia, guys, is huge. He competed as high as lightweight before. I think he's competed as low as bantamweight because the guy's just a weight cutting machine, right? Mean machine? No, weight cutting machine, Steve Garcia. The guy has competed as high as 155, didn't look out of place. Then at 145, he's beating up a little kid in Chase Hooper. God damn, Steve. Brutal knockout. But in any case, when you look at that fight, Steve Garcia is a guy that goes out there and trades hard, but he also has good wrestling, right? So he's tough to take down. When you look at Slava Borshev, I think the difference is Slava Borshev is not difficult to take down. He's been taken down like 40 times in his UFC fights, and I think 20 times in 2 UFC bouts consecutively. So it's not like, all right, hey, he surprised me that one time, but then I got a training camp in with my wrestling, and now nobody can take me down. It's like, no, people can take him down. It's been happening very frequently in his fights. Then you look at this side and you say, okay, Chase Hooper at 155, if he's able to get takedowns, what does the fight look like? I think if Chase Hooper is getting takedowns, the fight looks like Slava in bad positions, getting more and more tired, because what Slava does, Rich, is he explodes. He's a good scrambler. He's a guy that, hey, he's got a never say die attitude. He doesn't give a fuck. He's a tough bastard. All those things, positive attributes I could give him. But skill for skill on the mat, he's poor. He's not good on the mat. He makes a lot of bad decisions on the mat, and what bails him out is the fact that he scrambles like a motherfucker. He's going to just try and move, try and be stingy, try and explode, but it's not real. And so what's happened is a bunch of guys that are wrestlers that have gone out there and picked him up, took him to the ground. He has a great attitude for the bottom position. My coach used to say, bottom is an attitude position. It's not about who knows more. It's about saying, I'm not going to let this fucking guy hold me down, and getting back up to your feet and finding a way to get out. That's it. And sometimes there's nothing technical or sophisticated about it. It's like, I work my way up to my feet, I rip the hands apart, and then I go. For Slava, that's what he's doing. He is saying, I am not going to let this guy hold me down. So he explodes back up to his feet. He tries to push guys away from him. He tries to use butterfly hooks, but it's not very deep, sophisticated jiu-jitsu. It's get the fuck off me jiu-jitsu. I think Chase Hooper is not like that. He's got real skills on the ground. So he will use technical positions, body triangle, for example, or a hook in, or trying to ride this guy with wrestling positions, a double leg. I think I could see many ways that Chase Hooper could either finish this in the first round, one takedown and he gets the fight over, or he slowly cooks this guy to the bone. Because when you are comfortable wrestling and grappling all night, like Chase Hooper is, you can make somebody who's not comfortable doing that fatigued over time. The other thing I'll mention is both these guys have suspect chins, in my view. The difference is one of them had a suspect chin at 145. He's come up to 155. And now I think he takes a shot a little bit better. He got hit cleanly by Nick Fiore. He completely no-sold it, kept coming forward. He got hit cleanly by David Tamer back in the day. No-sold it, kept coming forward. So you've seen Chase Hooper can get hit and keep coming forward, keep fighting hard. We've also seen the Steve Garcia fight. Turned out poorly for him. So I think that is something to keep in the back of our mind. But on the other side, Slava Borshev, he's been almost knocked out many times on the regional scene, in the UFC. Last fight against Nazim Sadikov, my man got head kicked and literally is like laying out on the ground like this. Ref doesn't stop it. All right, hats off to him. The guy's tougher than shit. But Nazim Sadikov had no jiu-jitsu skills to finish the fight when he got it to the ground. He's not terrible on the mat, but he is not as developed on the mat as somebody like Chase Hooper. Not even close. I had heard rumors back in the day, and never putting somebody's name out there or anything like that. But it's like, I had heard from people back in the day that Nazim Sadikov was the bottom of the barrel for the top guys at Law MMA in terms of grappling, in terms of jiu-jitsu. I had tried to fade this guy by sub before based on rumors and innuendo I had heard from people in the gym, right? Then this guy goes out there and he's dominating Slava on the mat, right? He's passing the guard. He's moving to good positions. I think Chase Hooper could do all the same things. I just think that he does not want to trade on the feet like these other guys have. Nazim Sadikov, starting the fight, wants to trade with Slava and then realizes, okay, probably not a great idea long-term. Same thing with a guy like Mike Davis, right? Went out there, was willing to trade with Slava and then said, oh, fuck, this is not a good idea. And I think that Chase Hooper has no misconceptions about, I should go out there and trade with this guy, see how my dukes are holding up. He's going to go out there and try and wrestle from second one. And I think if he gets a hold of this guy, he's not just going to get on top and try and look for submissions. I think that's where people have a misinterpretation. Chase Hooper will beat the fucking piss out of you. He's done it to multiple guys. Kanan Gawahe got beat within an inch of his life. Felipe Colares, God rest his soul, got beaten up very badly in that fight. Nick Fiore, take your hat off to Nick Fiore. You guys understand, Nick Fiore took an ass whooping from Chase Hooper. He got bloodied up on the feet. His face was a mess. Looked like he had gotten meat tenderized by the fist of fury from Chase Hooper. And then on the ground, guys, Chase Hooper still bang, 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 10, 15, 20 ground and pound shots at a clip. I think that if he can get this fight to the ground, it doesn't matter whether he gets the sub or not. I think he's going to beat the piss out of this guy. Now, that being said, I've acknowledged all my love for Chase Hooper, the things I like about him. I've made a lot of money betting the kid. He could get knocked out brutally in the first round in this fight. That's a real possibility, but I think that it should be a pick 'em. You know, that's the way I see this fight. Should probably be a pick 'em. One clear path to victory. Hey, I can knock you out. One clear path to victory. I could dominate you on the ground. Let's find out who's going to, get it done on Saturday. But it just seems like a very honest lightweight fight to me. And a lot of people look at Chase Hooper and they say, he looks like a nerd. He doesn't look like a fighter. Watch him fight. He fights like a fighter, as far as I'm concerned. How about you, Rich?
Yeah, he can look however he wants. I went and looked at the stats on it, and I've cashed like 21 units on him since I've been betting on Chase Hooper. So he's one of my most profitable guys, man. I've made Slava mush of the week. You know, we're coming off Martinez being mush of the week, Aldo getting the W, 10 units max bet. And I don't quite have 10 units on Hooper in this position, but I have bet Hooper, and Slava is mush of the week. I heard some people saying Slava, he's getting better. He's at Team Alpha Male. He's only going to improve at 32. I don't think so. I don't think he's got any interest in improving, really. He's a striker at heart. It's always going to be that way. And I think at this stage in his career, he's never going to close that gap when it comes to grappling. And he's proved that to me by getting Khabib'd by, Mike Davis and fucking Dia Casey. Even Dakota Bush took him down before he got bonked in that fight, man. So I got to thank Slava for two things. One, he cashed me the draw against Sadikov. I was able to bet it live at Unibet. Shout out to them again. And the other thing I got to thank him for is he showed me that Mike Davis will implement takedowns. So I bet him in his latest fight at plus 900 for the submission. So I got some thanking to do for Slava. I'm going to thank him again on Saturday when he takes the L and probably gets finished and cashes my bet for me. The metrics are on the Hooper side. I think he's, coming into his own in this weight class. And one important thing is I think everybody who's betting this fight, if you like the Hooper side, you should go back and watch the Dana White Contender Series fight, because I think this fight plays out exactly like that, man, against the Kauai guy, the Hawaiian. He threw the sink in round one, tried to get Chase out of there. He showed, that resilience, that young chin that he has that, hasn't gone yet. He put it on him, man. He just wouldn't fuck off. And then in round two, the guy got discouraged, ended up on his back one too many times. And Chase was able to put the pressure on and get him down, man. I see it all the time in the Slava fights, man. He slows down considerably when it comes to the takedown defense. He's very prone to single legs as well. And I even think there's a chance that Chase doesn't even need to get this to the ground, man. He could even hop to the back from a standing position. Like I said, he's got the metrics in this fight in all areas, in a 5-inch reach advantage. You referenced this earlier as well. The A side, that is Hooper in this fight. He has a big following on Instagram. He is revered by the UFC. He does these interviews now and again. I think he's a guy that they want to keep around. He's a personality, you know. Back in the day, Ben Askren's my dad and whatnot. He's a funny kid, man, and he's wholesome as well. He's somebody you want to get behind and back, and someone you want to push. And I think the UFC have been doing that. You know, if you've got Chase Hooper, who do you want to give him? Somebody with shit takedown defense, someone with shit grappling. Jordan Levitt, and now we're going to Slava, man. Outside of a KO, Slava doesn't win this fight. There's not a world where I can imagine Slava getting a decision in this fight, purely based on the pace that Hooper pushes. And one thing he is consistent with that pace. Every fight he's in, he will do the same thing: push the pace, put out volume. He does have a disregard for the distance management. He will get tagged, but as you said, man, he's got a chin. He's good at this weight class. He's dog money. Bet. So that's where I'm at.
Fair enough. The other thing I'll mention is just if you look at the record of Chase Hooper, right, and you isolate it to grappling matches, went to decision with Aljamain Sterling, went to decision with Renato Moicano. You guys think if they fucking throw Slava Claus out there in a grappling match with either of those guys, he doesn't get tapped? God bless you if you feel that way, but I don't feel that way. I think Slava would get embarrassed by both those guys, and I even think Clay Guida, who got calf slicered in a couple minutes by Chase Hooper, I have a feeling that Clay Guida would beat him in a grappling match pretty easily. He's his teammate at Team Alpha Male. So, yeah, I just feel like there's a clear skill disparity between these two guys on the mat. And on the feet, I think people have an idea of Slava as being devastating striker. That's absolutely true. But I think they also have this idea of him being super tough and hard to finish. And I think that he is chinny. I think he has been almost knocked out by Kenley St. Louis on the regional scene, and basically, went face down flat in that fight. I mean, most referees stopped that, in my opinion. So Slava's just been hurt, rocked, dropped, put in bad positions many times in his career. And I think that Chase Hooper probably a little bit more left to give at this point. So great fight, great matchmaking, but we both like Chase the Dream Hooper, and he's been very profitable for both of us. So hopefully he can keep the ball rolling and do the job for us one more time, Rich. But next up, my man, we got a great fight. Waldo Cortez Aosta taking on Robelis Despain. And this is a spot where Robelis Despain is now over a 2-1 favorite. The line kind of got whacked, right? It was a big favorite price tag. It came all the way in, and now it's starting to drift all the way back out towards Robelis Despain. Money came in on Waldo, but now money's coming back in on the favorite. And I'm a guy that likes to advocate underdogs just as a broad, long-term, view of how to make money on this sport. I think it's easier to make money trying to isolate underdogs with a chance that makes sense for value, as opposed to, betting into long chalk favorites, especially in this heavyweight division. Now, when you look at Robelis Despain, he's got crazy athleticism. I've said before, most heavyweights can't kick above their waist, much less above their head. This guy can literally kick above his own head. He's very tall. He's a long guy. He can hit you from far away. His kicks are extremely powerful. He's an Olympian. So some people say, is it going to be a big stage for him and all these things? St. Louis, I don't expect this to be too big a stage for him. He was just in Miami the last time out. However, let's be serious about what happened. He went out there, he threw one high kick, fell on his ass, got back up, retreated, and then threw a right hand and knocked out Josh Parisian, who fucking sucks. So let's just call it the way it is. That fight means very little. And the one thing it did tell me is that this guy is not balanced. He does go out there and lose his balance a little bit. Throwing kicks, that's always a danger, right? If I throw a kick, I can always end up on my ass. But when you throw a kick to start a fight, like instantly, and end up on your ass, if that's not Josh Parisian, guys, he might just end up stuck on bottom, right? And if that guy ends up stuck on bottom for 5 minutes, he might just fucking quit, right? And I don't say that because he's a bad fighter or he's not athletic. He's a heavyweight. Heavyweights ending up underneath other heavyweights ends poorly 9 out of 10 times, right? Jay Collier and Chase Sherman. Are either one of those guys fucking jiu-jitsu aces? No. But when one guy ends up on top of the other, it's a real problem. It's 265 pounds. So when I'm looking at this spot, I say to myself, okay, Robelis, freak athlete, very powerful, not proven to go past 5 minutes, got tired in the Taekwondo. I wasted my life watching Taekwondo footage before this guy's last fight. You understand? I watched his fight. He gassed out a little bit at the end of 7.5-minute Taekwondo matches. So maybe he's cleared that up. But I've seen this guy get tired in the past in a relatively slow-paced sport where you can't grapple or clinch very much. He looks like a killer. He looks like he could win by knockout. But Waldo on the other side, not a guy who's been knocked out a bunch of times. He got knocked out in professional boxing, not since then. So I'm like, okay, he went against Thomas Peterson, a dedicated wrestler, not very good, right? We've seen him kind of get exposed when he got to the UFC, but Thomas Peterson went out there, tried to grapple hard with this guy for 10 minutes, and then gassed out round 3, got finished. So I say to myself, man, this guy Waldo he's shown I can go out there and push for 15 minutes. I can fight other contemporaries my own age, and go out there and put on a fight. I think there's a pretty solid clip that he gets knocked out in the first round here because Robelis is a freak and he's a big guy and he hits crazy hard. If he doesn't, I think this is going to look like an insane price. I just think you got a guy in Waldo who will throw leg kicks and will throw jabs, probably enough to make Robelis a little uncomfortable. And when you watch that last fight with Arlovsky is a seasoned, guy with like 50 professional fights, right? Maybe you don't want to take as many chances there. Maybe you're just happy to go out there and get the decision. I told him after that fight, you can salsa your ass onto PFL if that's how it's going to be, right? It was a boring ass fight, but a boring ass fight is still a win, right? He went out there and delivered. If you bet on him to win that night, you were like, you know what? Thank you for just doing your fucking job and getting the win. Now you're getting 2-1 on the comeback to find out if he can go out there and beat this fucking guy who's proven very little. Seems like a clear dogger pass to me at the current pricing. But that's just from a money line standpoint. I do think Waldo could get clipped here. I think that if this turns into, 15 minutes of stand up, anybody could win the fight, but I would trust Waldo to just be a little bit more persistent with the jab because he's a boxer, comes from a boxing background. And this other guy is a little bit more of a loosey-goosey. I didn't like his interviews that he gave before his first UFC fight. And honestly, man, if that wasn't Josh Parisian, I'm not sure he wins that fight. He looked kind of like shit. So how do you feel, Rich? Maybe I'm being too harsh on the guy, but like his 30 seconds of octagon time where throw a kick, fall over, retreat with your chin up in the air and knock out Josh Parisian, that doesn't tell me you're a great fighter.
Yeah, I'll keep it very short, man. It is dog or pass. I still think Bob probably wins. I call him Bob. I think he probably wins. I couldn't tell anybody to bet on this fight, man, because it's so volatile. It's heavyweight. Could end with one punch from the Bobby side. I will be sprinkling Waldo by submission 2-3. And I mean sprinkle, man. Literally like $5 on each round. And just to have some action on the fight. But yeah, I don't think anyone should really be getting involved in this. And the reason I say that is, if Waldo has any type of game plan in this situation, it shouldn't be to jab and to stand. He should try to clinch as fast as possible, wear this guy down, maybe even try for takedowns and change it up a bit. I know he's a boxer primarily, but every fight is different. You've got to show some IQ, man. Wear this guy down. You don't want to be throwing out jabs so then he comes over the top with some big fucking haymaker. He's got a significant reach advantage. You don't want that. Do I trust Waldo to do that? No, not really. But like I said, I'm going to sprinkle submission 2-3 and see what happens. But pass fight, man, whatever.
I mean, I want to shout out Andrew here. Andrew says, I don't think Liam is being too harsh. I think he's giving Waldo too much credit. The one thing I'm giving Waldo credit for is he's got 4 UFC level wins. Beat Andrei Arlovsky, UFC level win. Luca Spreski, UFC level win. By the way, just bet on the guy who won against Walter Walker. Loses to Marcos Rogerio de Lima. Rogerio de Lima was favored to beat Derrick Lewis by a tune of 70%. You know what I'm saying? Like, Marcos Rogerio de Lima gets a lot of respect. He's a well-rounded fighter in the division. It was a competitive fight. I thought Waldo probably won the first round. I thought he slowed down and lost the next 2. Beats Chase Sherman, UFC level guy. Beats Jared Vandera, very shitty, but UFC level guy. So it's like, you look at all these wins and it's like, is that any of those lower quality than Robelis Despain's win over Josh Parisian? I mean, like, I think all those are as quality or better quality. Beat Thomas Peterson, another UFC level guy. So I'm just looking at the resume and saying to myself, okay, one guy was a professional boxer, a more normal crossover to mixed martial arts than Taekwondo, right? We can all just say we know more boxers than Olympic Taekwondo athletes that transfer over to mixed martial arts. And then on top of that, it's like, this guy Waldo's been training MMA for longer. He's been in the rooms for a little bit longer. He's been around. It's like, I don't know. I'm just saying to myself, like, are we really just that down on Waldo? Here's the other thing. Robelis Despain last time out, guys, I was big on him to win the fight. Why? Because I was like, why would they fucking bring this guy in? Why would they pay him? Why would they do it in Miami in front of the huge Cuban population? Have him get embarrassed? No, they wanted him to win. But now we're not in Miami. We're in St. Louis. Is there a huge Cuban population in St. Louis that I'm unaware of? Like, it's probably just a fight to find out what they've got between two random heavyweights. Hey, heavyweight fight, put it in front of a crowd, get the crowd behind it. That's what it seems like to me. It doesn't seem like either one of these guys is really proven, at this point. So for me, shout out to the people that pointed out he slipped on the logo, all that shit. Hats off to you. Go ahead, Rich.
Sorry. Yeah, one thing I mentioned, because it's one of my only notes on this one, giving him someone who won't wrestle, and that's on the Bobby side. I just think that's a bit suspect, I do think they are giving him every chance because, Waldo, he doesn't go for takedowns, man. He doesn't push the wrestling. And I think that's obviously Bobby's weakness. I think you put him on his back, he's a fish, man. And, you can get a finish shortly after. So that was just something I had.
Fair play, my man. So we'll move along from this one, but I do think it's a pretty volatile matchup. Not saying like, one of these guys is a clear side, but it just in a heavyweight fight where two guys are probably going to be primary strikers, plus 200 on one side seems a little bit weird when he's the more proven guy on paper. So that's all. But I do think, shout out to Pepe, says Waldo played for the St. Louis Cardinals. So there's your little narrative nation if you're looking for that. But I think that it's a close fight, a competitive fight. And the guy who's got double the professional experience, way more UFC experience, he's plus 200. So it seems a little bit surprising to me. But hype is a powerful thing. Next up, we got Alex Caceres taking on Sean Woodson, another St. Louis-based fighter in Sean Woodson. And he's getting a coming home party, right? Tough fight, but a guy who's probably going to give him the fight he wants with Alex Caceres, guy that likes to go out there, stand up, have creative kickboxing engagements. And typically from Sean Woodson, he's also a boxer by trade in terms of how he approaches the fights, uses his long-range boxing tools, the jab, the body shots, but he also has some decent knees, some kicks that he can mix in there. His wrestling and grappling, it's not good, but it's been coming along, Rich. I certainly think that when he got to the UFC, it was a liability. I think he's made some significant improvements there. We both thought Dennis Bazooka was going to go out there and make it a little bit more competitive, and he was not able to do so. He was actually getting out-wrestled, out-grappled by Woodson. He took that on short notice. He was a little bit compromised going into that fight, but I still think we got to give a little bit of credence to that where, hey, Sean Woodson's a guy that's been making some improvements, getting better over time. Now, he's also had weird performances like the draw against Saldana, where he could have been knocked out several times in that fight. It was a very bad look for his chin. I do think that for Caceres, he has two clear paths to victory in this fight, which is number one, try and hop on this kid's back, submit him, right? He's obviously very talented with his jiu-jitsu. I've seen him submit quality guys in grappling matches. So obviously Alex Caceres, dangerous guy, black belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu. However, his other knockout ability is like landing crazy kicks, throwing like one big, looping head kick or something and taking guys out. He's not the most powerful puncher. So I think that the boxing exchanges will go to Sean Woodson in this fight. I think he will land more volume. So I think he's got to avoid making a critical mistake, getting finished in this fight, giving up his back. But I think he can manage the pace, manage the range. And honestly, I think he can hurt Alex Caceres. I think Caceres is a tough guy. I think he's a veteran, a savvy fighter, but he's getting up there in age. He's getting up there in terms of miles in the cage as well. And a lot of these guys have been able to land on him and not always follow up effectively, not always hurt him. He can mix in the grappling at times, save himself. But Sung Woo Choi was able to put him in some, landed some big, heavy shots on him and then got clipped. And there were some stoppages in the action, kind of just a weird way that fight ended up playing out. For me, I'm looking at Sean Woodson saying limb length is there. The guy has a big body, long frame, all the motivation in the world, younger guy at home. I think he's going to get this job done. And I wouldn't be surprised if he finishes Alex Caceres. Tough fight, tough fighters, great fight. I like the matchmaking, but give me the St. Louis kid. Give me Sean Woodson. I haven't always been a Woodson guy, but I think this is one where he has the opportunity to win the fight and thrive. So tough matchmaking, and the line is a little bit sketchy at minus 190. That is parlay booster territory, but I'm telling you, man, I think they tried to set him up for success here with this matchup. How do you feel?
If you didn't watch the card and you looked at the results the next day and you seen this went to decision, who would you say won?
Woodson.
Yeah, I think it goes to decision, man. Just based on card placement for the main card and the fact that I see the other guys around this one primarily finishing ITD. So, and also Alex Caceres, man, he is very durable. He doesn't get finished too much in his fights. He does like to bounce around and avoid fights sometimes, skirt on the outside, throw a few kicks, a few punches, and weasel the fight and point fight a little bit. Obviously, he has the BJJ advantage, but, like you said, Woodson's always improving there. Caceres is 35 now. So, to make it short, I think Woodson by decision. I think that's how the fight's going to go. But it's not one I want action on, man. Like you say, there are some dangers on the Alex side. He does have a clear path to victory. And I'm not even sure the numbers, I've just thought of that as we're speaking about it. So I'd have to look at the numbers, man. But yeah, Woodson decision, but nothing too profound from me, man.
Yeah, fair enough, man. I think that, both these guys have some path to finish. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if this one sees all 15 minutes. Two long guys, two guys that can both strike, two guys that are both pretty defensively responsible. I would argue most of the time. So seems to me like a fight that could be poised to go to decision. Also in the featherweight division, right? A little bit more frequent to go the cards. Next up, we got Carlos Diego Ferreira in the lightweight division taking on Mateusz Rumbetsky. And I've been accused of being Mateusz Rumbetsky before. I will go ahead and deny those rumors and allegations once again today. Carlos Diego Ferreira used to be a very high-level fighter. I do think he's slowed down considerably over the years, Rich. I thought that Michael Johnson fight, I told a funny anecdote about it, where my friend was trying to get me to bet his money on Michael Johnson, and I was like, bro, I can't do that. I can't do that. And then he gets knocked out, and I was like, save your money. So that, for me, is like the classic Carlos Diego Ferreira fight. It's like, he didn't look like he had any business winning that fight, but Michael Johnson finds ways to lose. So I just don't think Rebecky is going to find a way to lose here. I think he's going to find a way to win. How about you, Rich?
Yeah, you should have asked your friend for a finder's fee for saving him money, 15%. He could have lost it fucking all. Yeah, your intro is funny, man. Every time, even if you say Diego Ferreira, it sounds like it's an Irish accent, man.
Diego Ferreira.
I like Rebecky. I like him by KO. I like him by KO round 1. It's plus 410. I think Diego was lucky to get that KO over Michael Johnson. Obviously, Michael Johnson is prone to letting people down as a big favorite, but just the way I seen the fight going when I went and rewatched it, I think Carlos was slowing down and he literally just caught him, man. So I think that Rebecky will find the chin in round 1. That pressure, that pace, throwing them bombs. I think he will do it with reckless abandonment, and he won't get caught. He'll find his way on the inside and land something significant, and down he goes. But if he does not, and it ends up like the Nick Fury fight, Rebecky better watch himself, because if he implements the game plan of taking Carlos down and laying in his guard, it's bad news, man. He's a legit black belt. He will wrap you up. He will find a submission. So another live betting opportunity, man. If Rebecky doesn't finish him in round 1 and he fights at his usual pace and doesn't find that finish, I'd definitely be live betting it, because like I say, if Rebecky tries taking him down, man, I know who's got the better jiu-jitsu. So that's how I'm looking at this one, man.
Yeah, I'll be quick about this one. I'm a Rebecky fan. I like the guy. I think he's a good fighter, and I think he's a serious prospect in the lightweight division. Nick Fury is fucking tough. And I don't think he gets any credit for that, Rich. He went out there against Chase Hooper and got his face turned into lunch meat in the first round, fought him for the next 10 minutes, got his ass whooped the whole time, never gave up on himself, never stopped fighting, never stopped trying, landed a couple overhands himself, landed a couple shots, threw back. He just didn't have it, right? He was just behind. Same thing happened to him against Mateusz Rebecky, right? Rebecky was trying to put him away, was trying to put him down, was trying to land big shots, was trying to take him down and dominate on top. And this kid Fury was able to slow him down a little bit, work, scramble, not just give up easy positions, right? Some guys are put out there to make you look good. Some guys go out there and make you work. So you can be better, you can earn it, but you got to earn it. You're not just going to get anything for free. And that's what we saw against Fury. Then we saw when you give him normal levels of competition and he gets his feet wet a little bit and he starts to get comfortable inside the octagon, we've seen much better performances. Round 1 finish, round 2 knockout, I think it was. These are all off the top of my head, but either way, shutting down the leg, finishing somebody with the hands, taking them to the ground, submitting them easily with an armbar. This guy's dangerous. This guy is a handful for a lot of people. And has he ever beaten somebody of this quality? I would argue no. But this is the time, right? And when I'm looking at Carlos Ferreira, or Diego Ferreira, I think is his new ring name, but CDF, whatever you want to call him, he's a guy that's always been talented, but he's always been a step behind in the wrestling and the grappling pace. He can go out there and beat people, but when you start to wrestle, grapple, put him in a pace, he will eventually get tired. And he can start working his way back up to his feet and doing these things, but a lot of it is very energy intensive for him. We saw that the fight against Mateusz Gamrot, I have never seen a fight that I believe is more misinterpreted, Rich. Like, people talk about that fight like, Gamrot was really slowing down and he was about to be fucked, but then, of course, he got the finish. He hurt his rib. I'm like, are you guys fucking high? Like, Gamrot was literally pace grappling him like he does almost everybody, where he's not trying to take you down and hold you down. He's trying to take you down and then let you get back up and take you down again. And that's exhausting. It breaks your will. It makes you embarrassed. It hurts your soul, right? So this guy is out there getting taken down over and over and over. And then what happened? He bailed himself out, bro. He got knee to the body and he was about to get submitted, right? He was in a rear naked choke. And this guy goes, my rib, to the referee, and they stopped the fight. So I'm like, okay, like this guy, Carlos Diego Ferreira, not the same guy in my view. Because back in the day, I think he would have gone to the bloody depths. Like, I think he would have tried to hand fight that choke. But he just looked over at the ref. He's like, get me out of here, brother. And I'm looking at this. I'm saying, Ribecky, hungry, young, brutal, can go on the ground, can go on the feet, can kick the legs, can punch to the head. Seems like he's going to have a lot of different tools to bring to bear in this fight. I do think CDF's a talented guy, but I don't expect him to submit Ribecky. I don't expect him to knock out Ribecky. It's going to be a hard fight for him to win, in my view. So I think that from a money line standpoint, it's a dagger pass situation, but I don't think he's going to win. I think Rizbecki's going to win. So for me, I've been a Rizbecki's fan since he got to the UFC, bet him by sub against Ligio on Contender Series. So I think that this guy is the truth, and I think he's going to continue to win and dominate. So I think he's going to finish this fight probably in round 2. Shout out to this chat, sharpest chat in the game. I know my guy Rich likes round 1. For me, I think Ribecky is going to have to tire him out just a little bit, land a couple shots. But I think that if he's really smart, Rich, we're going to see him come out in round 1, disable the legs, land some shots on the feet. Round 2, I think that's when we see the takedown. I think that's when we see him pass the guard and beat this guy up, because I do think the jiu-jitsu is very quality. But when you're tired, it doesn't matter how good your jiu-jitsu is. And I do think that CDF is going to get hurt. I think he's going to get tired, and I think he's going to get finished.
Yeah, I feel that, man. I get you.
Next up, we've got Alonzo Atomic Menifield taking on Carlos Black Jag Olberg. Rich, why don't you start us off, brother?
Yeah, so this fight is the mush that never was. I settled on Slava Claus, but originally it was going to be Olberg. Had the graphic and everything. It looked amazing. He had a little earring in. It would have been good, man. But yeah, we have Menifield, number 13, fighting number 19 in Olberg. Seems the UFC really liked this matchup because they wanted to put it together again. It was originally, I don't know where it originally was, but anyway, it got cancelled and rebooked. So they kept the fight intact. New management for Menifield is with First Reign Management. I like that. They're one of the better management companies going around. I suppose I should mention the Jacoby fight, the controversial win. A lot of people thought Jacoby won. I bet Menifield that fight, so I don't care. I'm not dwelling on it. It's whatever. What I like in this matchup is the fight Alonzo had with Mazarov, the fake record. He finished the fight. It was the fact that he implemented the grappling in that one. And even after the bout, he talked about this is MMA. Obviously alluding to, we're not just going to stand. I am going to mix things up. And I hope he's keeping that same energy, man, because obviously in this fighting a kickboxer in Olberg, it would do him well to mix up the fight and implement some grappling, cage pushing, takedowns, whatever it is. So, yeah, I guess betting Menifield, I'm kind of counting on him to show some IQ and go that way. If he doesn't, I'm going to be super pissed off. But it won't be the first time I bet on a fighter and they don't take the path of least resistance. Olberg, he's half decent, I guess, but even on the feet, I think he's a bit of a, I don't know. I just think he's susceptible to getting hit, man. Obviously he got finished by Django, tried finishing him himself, didn't get it, gassed out a bit, and then he put it on him. That wasn't a good look. The Jung fight that he had, I think that was kind of like anyone's in round 3. And yeah, Jung, he pushed the action too much, man. I just think he would have been better if he paced the fight a little bit, but he didn't. He tried pushing it, got reversed. Olberg ended up on top and yeah, won the fight. Ihor, I'll be careful saying this one. Negu Umaranu, he beat him as well. Tafon Charant, you know, these aren't good wins under your belt. Half these people aren't even in the UFC anymore. He was due to fight Dominic Reyes twice. Olberg, one was cancelled because of him, injury, and then Reyes cancelled. That to me just says they don't care for this guy, man, because in my opinion, Reyes would have smashed him. I think that would have been his comeback fight, get him a W. So there's a bit of narrative, I suppose, in that one. But yeah, ultimately, I think Menifield can win this fight, but it all comes down to his game planning, man. And I think at plus 200 or whatever it is, you know, it wouldn't hurt to pay the price to find out. And that's exactly what I'm going to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a clear dogger pass situation as well. Now, when I look at the Olberg side, I think that the thing he does well that could win him this fight is the left hook. I mean, we've just seen in the past, like he's taken a couple guys out in round one. We have seen, you know, I think it was OSP dropped Atomic Alonzo Menifield with that left hook. I actually bet OSP that night. I think he was like a plus 2XX underdog himself. So I thought it was funny, right? Alonzo Menifield goes from being like the minus 300 favorite every UFC fight. Now he's a big underdog here. He's 36 years of age. I think that has a lot to do with it. And I think that when you look at Olberg, he's a powerful puncher. And like I said, he fits the criteria of, hey, this guy got knocked out by OSP, left hook that he never saw coming. What if the same thing happens here against another savvy striker like Olberg? But I think number one, Menifield has power to match Olberg, right? Olberg landed a ton on Kennedy and Zechiku. And then Kennedy was able to weather the storm, come back, land big shots on him in round two, take him out of the fight. When we're looking at this fight, I say to myself, Alonzo might get clipped, might get taken out by the first shots that land, but he also could do the same thing to Olberg, right? He lands big shots. He's a heavy-handed guy, almost knocked out Jacoby, who's a professional kickboxer as well. So we've seen from Atomic Alonzo Menifield a lot of power. But what else have we seen? He's fought some of the same guys, right? He's fought some of these common opponents. And unlike, you know, Carlos Olberg, who has to fight 15 minutes of slow-paced, competitive, boring kickboxing with Fabio Charant, this guy took him down, squished him like a bug, and choked him, right? So I do think that when you look at a guy like Alonzo, he should have more paths to victory here. We saw the rear naked choke last time from Olberg, but I don't think that was like, my jiu-jitsu is now high level. I'm going to do the Mundials next week. It's like, no, this guy just was like, okay, I have got a guy compromised in a bad situation. I'm going to look for my choke. And if you have somebody flattened out, you can get a rear naked choke. It doesn't take some great sophistication. Now, when I'm looking at this fight, I'm saying, okay, Olberg, athletic, right? Probably the more athletic guy. But I do think that Atomic Alonzo Menifield could pick him up, turn him sideways, and slam him on his head. I don't think there's any reason to believe that's not possible. I also think he could drop him with a punch and then follow him to the ground. So if somebody's going to wrestle and grapple and be effective in this fight, I think it's more likely to be Alonzo. So if that's the case, you know, this is a guy that submitted Jimmy Crute, another guy who's a credible submission grappler in the UFC. It seems to me like Alonzo just has more upside, right? Can win the fight by knockout, can win it by submission, goes to a close decision. I don't think I favor either guy substantially. So, yeah, dogger pass.
Do you know what? As you're saying that, I don't think he is athletic, Olberg. I know he certainly looks it. I just think he's got the gifts from God. You know, he's incredibly handsome, like no Diddy. And, yeah, he's tall as fuck. Got some range, but I don't think he's athletic, man. I think if you was to put them two through some drills, Alonzo would be the athletic one. But yeah, that's really all I wanted to add, man, as you were saying.
Yeah, fair play. I honestly think they're both pretty decent athletes. But yeah, Alonzo might be the more athletic of the two. You know, I certainly think he's the more explosive hitter of the two. But yeah, it's a fun one, man. Good matchup. And I like Olberg well enough. I don't think he's a bad fighter, but I do think that the hype is starting to roll back around on Olberg. You know, pretty strong, and we'll see if it's justified.
Yeah, I was trying not to mention the losses for Menifield against Knight and Clark. Obviously, they're not good looks, but he's come some way since then, man. And yeah, shout out to OSP for cashing that big underdog, man. That was something special.
Hell yeah. The thing I will add here, Rich, is that when he lost to those guys, he lost to William Knight in a fight where nothing took place. Like seriously, nothing happened in that whole fight. The thing that they scored for William Knight, guys, is that he threw punches. He attempted strikes in the third round. That's it. He did not land a single shot. You guys can go back and rewatch it yourself. Tell me if you feel different, but he does not land a single punch. He wins the round because nothing happened. They just cage pushed each other for 4.5 minutes. So
Alonso can be hot and cold, man. He can come in like that and do nothing and be underwhelming. Same with OSP, but then he can come in motivated like Mozarov. I guess you got to, make him incense, man. Call him some names or whatever, like I think Mozarov did.
Yeah, well, the thing that I think is most important is you looked at William Knight loss was in 2021. He beats Mozarov, Misha Serkinov, goes to draw with Jimmy Crute in a fight where a lot of people thought he deserved the win. Then he goes out there and finishes Jimmy Crute in the rematch, beats Dustin Jacoby, landed big shots in that fight, dropped him multiple times. That is the kind of thing that tells me, hey, he's actually going out there and being a little more aggressive, being a little more assertive in this recent run of fights. So like to see that from Alonso. But yeah, definitely some questionable losses along the way. I just think that he's a mental midget in the past. I think that's what's held him back. And I think that now he's got new management, new coaches, new attitude. He looks like he's out there willing, ready, able to fight. So that's what we like to see from Alonso. Next up, my man, Joaquin Buckley is taking on Nursultan Ruziboev. These guys are both making a very quick turnaround, Rich. They fought at UFC Atlantic City, but the difference is Joaquin Buckley has been in this welterweight division. He's been cutting his teeth there a little bit. Has he been beating the best opposition? No, but he's been in the weight class, getting accustomed, getting suited to it. You see a guy like Nursultan Ruziboev, he's huge. I don't understand why he's cutting down to the welterweight division, honestly. I think at 185, he's fine. I think he's situated well to compete with those guys. I guess he wants to have a size advantage. I think he wants to potentially, have that wrestling advantage in his fights. He is a big, long guy. I think that his physicality will translate at welterweight if he's able to cut the weight effectively. However, I don't know that he's going to be able to cut the weight effectively. It's been a long time since he's made this weight class. Now he's doing it not with a lot of preparation and time. He's doing it pretty quickly. So all those things for me are a little bit concerning, Rich. I like Ruziboev. I think that he's been underrated in the UFC so far. Why? Because he comes in, people are saying he's a fraud. He's a fugazi. He fucking sucks. He's not going to be anything. He's had all these fixed fights. And then he goes out there and smokes Ferreira, cashes me at plus 190. And I was like, is he really that big of a bum? Like, seems to me like he's all right. Then he goes out there in his next fight. He beats Cedric Dumas. A lot of people like Dumas there, right? He's a popular underdog side going into that fight. And I had said, I think Nursultan is just going to be too sharp for him on the feet. If you remember the Ferreira fight, he gets no credit for. If you ask anybody in the community, they're like, Ferreira, his head hit the canvas. Because he got punched in the face. It's like if my head hit the canvas because somebody punched me in my face, I wouldn't be like, that damn canvas, it really got me. But it's like, all right. Anyway, when you watch that tape back, did he look like he got lucky? He didn't to me. He looked like he made a good read. This guy's trying to chop my calf down. And as soon as he went to throw that calf kick again, caught the kick, left hand, thanks for playing, buddy. Good night. Then you're looking at this. I'm like, okay, Nursultan Ruziboev against Buckley. Is he going to go out there and trade on the feet? Buckley's a heavy-handed guy. Buckley can knock people out. He's a dangerous fighter on the feet. He can do damage to somebody's face. Are they going to go out there and grapple? Buckley's never been submitted. He hasn't submitted anybody, but we know he can wrestle. He can grapple. He's not a complete mark there. He's had like 25 plus professional fights, never been finished there. So it's like, okay, the guy's decent grappling. And then you look at his body type, big shoulders, no neck. Where do you submit this guy? Like he's got fucking arms that are big, brolic, a big ass chest, and then no neck. He doesn't seem like a guy who's very easy to submit to me. So if Ruziboev is going to struggle to submit him, then I think he needs to knock him out. And I think that he can knock him out, but that's how I would rather play this. Ruziboev by KO at plus 350 or whatever, or maybe look inside the distance, something like that. Because I think we're in St. Louis where Buckley is going to be a star, where Buckley is going to get, the crowd behind him. And I also think Buckley's more proven over 15 minutes. I don't love Buckley. I've never been a Buckley fucking truther, but just looking at his resume, his record, he is the more proven guy at the UFC level. I don't like fading a guy like Nursultan who's done nothing wrong. He's gone out there, got 2 first-round wins, look great doing it. But when I look at this fight, I just say to myself, everybody wants to get invested on this fight, and I don't feel the need to. At plus 115, I think the value is probably marginal on Ruziboev. I think that on the Buckley side, it could be interesting to see how he is able to approach rounds 2 and 3 here. He's the much more octagon experienced fighter, but we've also seen on his resume, on his ledger, he's been knocked out in the first round before. He's been hurt, clipped in the first round before. Taller fighters have given him problems. So I don't see a huge edge here, Rich. How about you?
I like Ruziboev, man. And I think he wins. And I also think if you're going to play Buckley, man, you should be playing him by decision rather than his money line. I know the money's coming now on Ruziboev, so maybe that's not the case. I haven't checked it recently. But Buckley by decision is 400. I think that's a good look, because I think if he's smart in this fight, if he wants to win this fight comfortably, he should be taking Ruziboev down and, compromising that cardio of his. He has power in his hands. Surely Buckley knows that. You don't want to get caught by something. So if you watch the tape, man, Ruziboev can get stuck on his back. He's a bit slow at getting up, the transitions and whatnot. He's a big guy. It must be hard for him to do that. Buckley, if you're going to take him, I'd go by decision 400. But I actually like Ruziboev to win. He's the A side, 1.5 million following. Who knows? Maybe half of them are fake. But yeah, he has a big following, man. A surprising one as well when I looked at it. And it's in St. Louis, but I don't think Buckley's a star. I don't think anyone really cares about this guy. Whenever I hear him talk, I just think, like, what the fuck's this, man? Eddie Murphy in the 80s, like the way he acts, the way he carries himself and talks, it just seems a bit forced from me. Like he wants to be like the next Kevin Holland. But yeah, let's look at his wins at 170. Fiallo, does that mean much to anybody now? Morano, he's happy to just, swing it on the feet and see what happens. And I just think the more athletic, the more dynamic guy won in that fight. And Luca, maybe I'm discrediting Buckley here, but I don't think Luca showed up. Not the Luca that we know. He seemed a bit dejected, when he got took down, didn't really offer much of anything, and kind of just shelled up and took the L, man, which was very surprising. Fair play to Buckley for getting them wins, but I don't think they mean much. One thing that's interesting is obviously the 1 month turnaround. It's another big cut for Buckley, and we'll see how that affects him. I'm actually trying to target Ruziboev by submission in 2-3. They fuck around on the feet a little bit in round 1. Maybe Ruziboev pushes the grappling and takes Buckley down. We've seen Imavov rinse and repeat that. One other thing that I noticed when I was looking at their records, Buckley struggles with big guys, man. And I'm talking about Imavov, 6'3", Shariko, he's 6 foot, and Kevin Holland, 6'3". He lost all of them fights. And then you go to Ruziboev, who's 6'5", man. Like, he's a huge dude against Buckley, who's 5'10". So I'm hoping that takedown defense holds up. I'm hoping that Buckley's an idiot and just tries to stand and doesn't implement wrestling. Ultimately, Ruziboev's the side for me. He's on a 10-fight win streak, all finishes in round 1. That's concerning. Obviously, what if the fight gets extended? That's a worry. So I might look to live bet it. Like I said, I can get live props. It's with Dominance MMA as well, Ruziboev. I always like that angle. So was Jose Aldo. Pfeiffer and Sean Brady. He's been doing work with them per Instagram. I like that look as well. Obviously, Brady's a solid guy on the ground. That just leads me to believe, like we was talking about Hardy going down to Renzo's, Ruziboev training with them guys, it will make you believe he's going to try and push the grappling in this fight and maybe wrestle Buckley and get it done that way. So, that's the angle I'm going to look for, man.
Yeah, I think that, Ruziboev, he does fit a lot of boxes for me, right? Like way more professional experience. He's a young enough guy in his own right. He's not an old man. He's got a ton of followers on social media. So well-known commodity in that way. And also, like I said, people want to hold it against him that he's been finishing people in the first round, but it's like, you can only do what you can with the opponent across from you, right? If you're better than him to the point where you're going to win in the first round, what are you going to do? Carry him? Like drag him to the second round? It's like, no, he's just doing his job. He's going out there getting the wins he's supposed to in the fashion he's supposed to. And I think that this is where the rubber kind of meets the road for him. This is his toughest UFC opponent to date. I do think it's going to be a little bit of a finding out what we've got with both these guys. But Buckley, I would say, I think he is translating as a potential star, right? He's a young guy, and he doesn't have the greatest win-loss record. So I don't think it's all about winning and losing with Buckley. I think it's about having fun fights, being a star, being a character. He says he wants to fight for the title, but we've also seen from him in the past, he's willing to take on these fights, different weight classes, move around a little bit. I think at 170, he feels more confident. He feels better about his own preparation. I think he's getting in slightly better shape to do that. But I also think that Ruziboev is not a punk. He's not an easy guy to get one over on. He has beaten real guys on the regional scene from Russia that nobody wants to talk about that. He does train with world-class guys, like you said, Marquez MMA, quality grapplers like Sean Brady, like Joe Piper, pushing him every day in the training room. And also his brother just got signed to what's it called? Or his cousin, I'm not sure, but another Ruziboev got signed to Dominance MMA. So I think that they're trying to like make this a family affair, bring him along. And is it a perfect fight? No, it's a hard fight, but it's a winnable fight. And it would be 3 in a row with, 3 impressive wins on his resume if he's able to get this one done. And then it kind of leaves him in that Chimaev situation where it's like, do I want to continue at 170? I don't know. Do I want to go at 185? I don't know. But it gives him a lot of options. And I think that Ruziboev is one of the biggest weirdest body types to deal with in the division. So let's see how he translates at welterweight, but I'm waiting for weigh-ins before I act no matter what on this fight because Ruziboev is huge and he is making a pretty serious weight cut on short notice turnaround. So let's see how that turns out. But great fight, great matchmaking. Go ahead, Rich.
Yeah, do you know what's funny is you're saying that when you say Buckley can be a star. I think it's on the other side, the same age, they're both 30. Ruziboev, he's got these highlight KOs, these finishes. He's somebody you can put on a card at pay-per-view, like Michel Pereira, which I'm kicking myself at because I bet Michel Pereira, I faded him, and it was Anthony Smith who I should have actually been on. I was deliberating between them two, but on these pay-per-views,
me too, brother.
They want guys who are going to finish, man. Someone who's trending the next day. Someone who's going to look at it, the casuals. Who the fuck's this guy doing backflips? Who's this 6'5" monster knocking out this bloody cocky little black guy? So I like the angle for that, man. I think the actual star in the making is Ruziboev. They're going to Saudi Arabia or Dubai. I can't remember which in June. He likes to take short notice fights. Why not give him another quick turnaround on that one? They can have a little narrative. He did it before, knocked out Buckley round 1, subbed him round 2, whatever it may be. I just think Buckley's an annoying little shit. And I'd like to believe that Dana sees that as well. Like this guy who gets on the mic, starts fucking, clapping, put me main event. And Dana's like, all right, you little fucker, I got someone for you to fight. And they give him Ruziboev, someone who could look minus 300, man. That size could be a major problem for Buckley. He could take him down, rinse and repeat. So yeah, but I do agree with you. Wait for weigh-ins, see how they look. But I'm just saying, man, I think Ruziboev's the guy who they're trying to pump up.
I see where you're coming from, Rich. The only thing I'll say for Buckley is last time, you remember when he did that whole like dancing and shit at the Atlantic City, like what he basically was doing like a dance party and like everybody's getting hyped and they're rapping and shit and like doing this whole dance party before he fought Luca. And then he looked like $1 million and beat the shit out of him. And I was like, oh my God. Like when I'm looking at Buckley, he does understand marketing, right? And so for a lot of these fighters, man, they don't have the first clue what they're doing when it comes to promoting a fight, anything like this. Number one, he says, I want this card. I want you to care about me here. I'm a local guy. Put me on this card. Give me a chance. Give me a profile spot. So then he gets a big name fight against a guy who's had a lot of success in Ruziboev. But admittedly, Ruziboev is not deep in the division, right? To point out what Wade had said, he said, initially I was concerned at 170. He's never missed weight. Never missed weight, but most of his losses in his career are at 170, not at 185. So why are you coming back to a weight class where you've had more struggles instead of just staying at 185 where you're having success? Here's the other thing. Have you ever heard of Detroit Urban Survival? I know this sounds so stupid, Rich. Okay, there's this guy that was viral in the USA because he would do these things where it's like, increase your survivability by doing this when somebody pulls a gun on you, whatever.
Oh,
yeah. He's been memed a million times because none of this shit works, but he is like a guy who's trying to help people do the right thing. This guy, Buckley, brought him out for a fight, brought him in his corner, Dale Brown in his corner, all this shit. Why? Because he gets the game, because he wants to have viral moments, because he wants to have people talking about him after the fight. So he's doing all these things that he can to get marketability, to be more promotable. I do think Buckley, for that reason, is like one of the guys that's on the precipice of breaking out as a U.S. star. Is he international? Does he represent all these different demographics? Maybe not. And so maybe that's why you want to temper the enthusiasm. But I think to give him a showcase in his own hometown, they're basically saying, you guys go figure it out between the two of you. Who's the better guy? Who deserves this push? But both of you guys are star-making potential. And that is where I think we're at. If Buckley was to knock him out in the first round and have a crazy win, he could take a rocket ship to the moon. because he is a guy that will talk shit, put on fun fights. He's got a great highlight reel as well. So that was the only thing I was going to mention. I think it's well matched because no matter what, the UFC comes out of this in all likelihood with a guy they can easily promote moving forward in the division. Go ahead, Rich.
And do you know why else I'm saying that? As you're saying this, I learned my lesson on Michel Pereira, man, because when I was looking at both those fights, the Anthony Smith one, it's just the finishing ability, man. I knew that Petrino most likely wouldn't finish Smith. I expected it to go to decision. So I was like, boring fight. Obviously, I knew Anthony was live for the sub. I didn't think it was be a guillotine. I thought maybe a triangle, but I don't think he'd get it. That's why I stayed away and I went on the Michel fight. But it's the guy most likely to finish they want to highlight, in my opinion. And because I believe Buckley's going to win by decision, if anything, and Ruziboev's the one with the upside for the finish, that's why I lean towards him, especially on a main card, on a co-main event. I just believe that the UFC want to push the guy who's going to give you a highlight reel finish. And I don't see, it's very low percentage in my mind, at least anyway, that Buckley will finish this fight.
I think kind of like McKinney and what's his name?
Ribovics.
I kind of think it's like if somebody gets finished in round one, you're expecting to hear McKinney wins the fight. If somebody gets finished in round one, I'm expecting Ruziboev won the fight and did it dominantly. But I do think if somebody gets finished in round 2 or 3, that's where it becomes more of a toss-up. Just like with the Ribovics thing, he's got probably a little more cardio to push. I think when you're cutting a lot of weight and you're a huge guy like Ruziboev that hasn't been out of the first round in a long time, that's where it could get a little dicey. But again, sensational matchmaking because there was a lot to dig into on that fight. So good stuff. Yeah. And to your point, last week, we told you guys, what we thought about the fight. Hey, Petrino is less skilled than Anthony Smith at everything, but we still got to tell you who we think is going to win. In that case, missed the ball, right? We had the right tool, but by the wrong end, unfortunately. So hopefully this week we find the right parlay busters and we deliver accordingly. But next up, my man, the main event, the one that we've all been waiting for. If you guys don't mind, go ahead and drop a like on this video. Go ahead and get subscribed to the channel, and we are going to break down this main event for you like we do each and every week. We've got the Black Beast, Derrick Lewis, prolific main eventer for the UFC. I don't think anybody in the modern era has main evented more than Derrick Lewis. Certainly not somebody that's not holding a championship belt. So hats off to the guy. He's made a career for himself. He's a guy that's marketable. Talk about a star that they like putting, dollars behind. He goes out there, says things that are interesting, puts on fun fights, has a great highlight reel, heavyweight knockout king. And he's taking on an opponent in Rodrigo Nascimento, whose first UFC main event, not a known commodity, not an impressive list of wins or a great resume or anything like that, but he is an American top team product. He's a Brazilian guy. It's a decent enough matchmaking situation where they're like, hey, this guy, Derrick Lewis, got taken down a bunch last fight, so you can go out there and try and take him down too. But if it plays out on the feet, I could just tell you, I don't trust Rodrigo Nascimento at all. I think Rodrigo Nascimento sucks. I always thought Rodrigo Nascimento sucked. I thought he sucked when he got to the UFC. I faded him with Dawkins at plus 220. I took the under 1.5 rounds in the Alain Badeau fight at like minus 120 or minus 140 or whatever. Alain Badeau beat the shit out of this guy and then gassed out like he always does and gave up and quit. So I don't think Rodrigo Nascimento is very good. However, we got to be realistic about where Derrick Lewis is at and what his career trajectory is, because he could go out there and put on a great performance here and say, hey, I'm back for the title shots. I'm a serious contender again. Or he could go out there and say, I'm done with this fucking fighting thing. I'm 39 years of age. I don't need this shit in my life no more. And he gives up. But which is more likely? I think the fact that Derrick Lewis has gotten slim and in shape has shown that he actually cares a little bit about fighting. I honestly think, Rich, his last 2 fights have been arguably his best 2 showings in the UFC to date. Did he look great against Shelton Almeida? No, but did he look like a guy who was difficult to submit and like had a patience and a ground game and a willingness to try and fight for 25 minutes? Yeah, and that's something you couldn't always say about Derrick Lewis. He used to be a guy that, hey, if he gets into a bad position, he might just check out and say, that's enough. Thanks anyways. And now he was actually showing some heart, some toughness, some resolve. I have said in the past, the reason I fade Derrick Lewis is because I can trust him to give one, but I can't trust him to take one. As my guy Dan Levy used to say, he would talk about he could give it, but can he take it too? Like Floyd Mayweather. This is a spot where, like, I know Derrick Lewis in the past has not been able to take it very well. Either can Rodrigo Nascimento, bro. Like, I think Rodrigo Nascimento is a flake. So I think neither one of these guys take shots well, but I think Derrick delivers a better shot. I think he's more dangerous on the feet. So I don't think that you're getting a huge edge on the money line, only because it's heavyweight. There is some inherent volatility. You got the younger guy in Nascimento. He's more likely to push the ground game. But if this turns into a stand-up fight, I think Derrick Lewis wins it at least 70+% of the time. Just think he's more dangerous. Think he hits way harder. Think he can take a shot as well as Nascimento. So for me, Black Beast, probably in the first 2 rounds, probably in brutal fashion. That's the way I see it going. If Nascimento wins, I think it's probably in round 2 or 3. I think it's probably probably a ground and pound finish. He could submit him, I suppose, but just like Derrick Lewis, when he ends up on the ground underneath guys his own size, I think that's where you could see some, ground and pound like this. Jailton Almeida was not able to really hold Lewis down. We saw a lot of times when he would get the fight to the ground, Lewis was just able to pop back up to his feet or to force some off balancing from Almeida. And I think that with Nascimento, he's a little bit bigger in his body. I think he can go chest to chest and hold somebody like Derrick down a little bit better. So that's kind of how I feel. But I mean, I think Nascimento sucks. So that's just my honest opinion. I always have felt that way. Never thought he was very good. Comes from a good gym. Younger guy, could make improvements, but I don't see it, Rich. How about you?
Yeah, Lewis for me, everything you said, man, and everything we talked about previously, get a highlight reel KO, get him back in the win column, get him another win for taking that Almeida fight and taking the L there. They like Lewis, man. He's a company guy, funny as fuck on the mic, always does something that goes viral, talking about Ronda, talking about his balls, talking about humping his wife, whatever it might be. I just noticed on the main card, at least, everyone's over 30, man. There's no youngsters on it. The youngest guy just before the main card is Hooper at 24. That's pretty interesting. It's an ESPN card, isn't it? Is it ESPN? Yeah, that's interesting.
Indeed.
I'm going to look into that. But yeah, Lewis for me, KO, round 1 or 2 probably. But the numbers are probably crap. I haven't even looked at the numbers. It's not one I've targeted, to be honest, but I think he KOs him.
Yeah, man, I think the props will suck on this fight, unfortunately, just because, everybody knows Lewis, his win condition typically correlated with the KO. If I was to play it, I'd take the money line. That's just me. I'm not going to, fucking get queued over 15, 20 cents or whatever it is. I do think the KO is the most likely outcome. This fucking guy just went to a decision, right? It's like, we've seen it. I didn't expect it that time either. And so I'm just not going to get cute for 10, 15 cents. But I think Lewis wins and wins early if he wins. Go ahead.
And that was interesting as well. Derrick going five rounds with Almeida was very impressive, man, because at each time they started on the feet, it seemed like Derrick had, a little bit of gas left in the tank to throw that power shot. He just got taken down immediately. And I just don't believe Nascimento is that smart. If it does get to round 2, it does get to round 3, which I don't think it will. I don't think he's going to come out and shoot within 30 seconds. I think he will play on the feet and give Derrick every chance to land something significant. Lewis, isn't it?
Also, I'll finish with this, man. His takedowns suck. Like, who is he taking down that's quality at all? I haven't seen one good takedown so far from Rodrigo Nascimento. And again, we know Lewis isn't like, Johnny Sophisticato when it comes to his takedown defense, but it's like, I just can't see him going out there and fumbling this one at a high clip when we've seen Derrick has gone out there and lost weight, looks like he's in better shape, and then performed much better in his recent bouts. So good shit, guys. There you have it. We've got it in the bag. The whole show is done. I will have it timestamped for you guys before end of business today. I want to say thank you to our guest, Rich. Thank you to the sharpest chat in the game for being here each and every week to break it all down. If you guys were here last night for First Look and you're here again, then you're an absolute soldier, and I appreciate you. If you guys have more comments, questions, thoughts, concerns, go ahead and drop those in the comment section down below, and I will try and address as many as possible before fight time. Rich, let the people know where they can find you, my brother.
Yeah, catch me on Twitter, man. Like I said at the beginning of the show, if you could donate to this GoFundMe, I'd appreciate it. You'd always be in my good graces. And like I say, donate more than $5 and I'll give you my bets for this card. Or even just sign up to the Patreon. I'm going to be giving all my Patreon money as well for the next 6 months to this woman as well to help out. So you'd be helping out and, it trickles down, pay it forward and all that shit. So I'd appreciate it.
Good shit, my man. So rest in peace, Bleed. Appreciate that. I'm going to put that in the description down below as well. We'll make sure we get that added there. Just want to say to you guys, thank you all so much for the support. God bless you all. Hope that you guys come back next week. We're going to be talking about all the fights again. We do this shit each and every week. If you're not already, get subscribed to the channel. If you want to help out, drop a like on the video. Go ahead and leave a 5-star rating or review on podcast. I put out First Look on podcast this week. I'm going to have this episode as well, Bets and Banter on podcast for you this week. So trying to get back in terms of our due diligence on the content side. Going to be here for a post weigh-in show tomorrow if all goes well. So thank you guys for the support. Appreciate everybody for being here. Thank you for the drama. Thank you for the insights. Thank you for the support. Thank you for your betting thoughts. Just appreciate everybody for making the show what it is. Come back next time and we're having all the same fun again. Thanks, everybody.